little heart go up. Was that for me?
Yes.
Did I see a heart? Oh. And is this chat room still live too?
Yeah.
Okay, someone in the chat room tell me that this is actually happening and you can actually see me. Pretty please. While I pour myself some Georgian champagne, and I mean the country of Georgia, right near Russia, not Georgia the state. Okay, I got too many windows open. Let me go here. Let me go there. Okay, let me catch up. Oh my God, Liza Jane Miller subscribed with Prime. Thank you, Liza Jane Miller. First time chat from Rubik's Cuber. Oh my God, Rubik's Cuber. Great screen name. Saying, sup, boy. Rubik's Cuber 2003. Awesome. I'm assuming that's when you either graduated or took my class, Rubik's Cuber. First time chatter from Tomoya187 with a popcorn icon. Thank you, Tomoya. Inky 2050 back in the hizzle. Cruet says I can see. First time chatter from Checkle 10. Another first time chatter, Shannon Akins. Welcome. First time chatter, Hannah McMurray. Thank you, Hannah. Rubik's Cuber says, let's go. We got our cover C up with the Velociraptor. Velociraptor's in the hizzle. I think I miscall you Velociraptor from now on, our cover C. First time chatter, Caitlin Sharp saying it's live. Thank you, Caitlin. First time chatter, X Souls Born. Ooh, another great screen name. First time chatter, Sky Daddy. Saying, how do you join the video? Did you answer that? I don't know what that means. I thought this was video. Tamoya also has I'm assuming a kitten or a pig or a kitten that turned into a pig dancing. First time chatter, Angry Turkey Worshipper. I don't even know what that screen name means, but I love it. First time chatter from Michael Schroyer. You're not a first time chatter, Michael Schroyer. What are you talking about? I know who Michael Schroyer is. Was hoping you'd be on tonight to do this breakdown. I got 20 internet tabs open. Wanted to hear from you first, my man. Thank you, Michael Schroyer. Sky Daddy says, oh, he has not started. I've started now. Okay. Sky Daddy says, think Taiwan is next. Could be. Hollandsworth 29 says, howdy. How you doing, Hollandsworth? First time chatter from J&A Hulk 13 saying, hey. X Souls Born says, first time I'm not watching a Boyer video at 2 times the speed. I'll try to talk faster. Okay. Well, welcome all of you and any other random folks in the Twitch world who, first time chat from Rachel Birch. Chatter from Rachel Birch. Welcome, Rachel. First time chat, Dark Knight. Batman is in the house. First time chat, Ryan M444. First time chat, Kai 73. First time chat, Homeless Batman. Now there's 2 Dark Knights in the house. There's 2 Batmans in the house. First time chatter from Gavin Linden and Big Gifford and Syoth Mode. Holy cow, what's going on? Why are all these people on fire right now with first time chat? Scoot Patoot, Big Gifford. Also past class taker, Plaid Princess in the house. Oh, I know Plaid Princess. What's going on, Plaid Princess? I'm Bill says, waiting for this all day. Lloyd Christmas says, what's up? First time chatter from Raypeck8. Hi, Dad. Oh, dear Lord. Who is Raypeck8? Is it one of my children I know about? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm sorry, this is getting really personal and a little scary. First time chatter from Lackluster's Lives. Been waiting all day as well. Scoot Patoot LOL. Thank you, Plaid Princess. How are you doing, Plaid Princess? I hope well. It has been far too long since we chatted. Okay. So Sky Daddy's confused on how this works. Katie's going to hook you up with some details. So here's what's going on, my friends. I have... bizarrely enough, I know, I have been plaidcasting / Twitch casting about the Ukrainian situation. Gosh, this is like the 4th, 5th, or 10th time I've done something on the Ukrainian situation in the last 3 weeks. We already have 10 to 20 or 30 hours of logged conversations / rants where I did a whole history of Ukrainian-Russian relations. I did a whole series of a build-up to what was going on in Ukraine for the last 6 months. I did a whole 2-part Twitch cast on Vladimir Putin himself, which reinforced all the moves that he was making up to yesterday when he officially invaded Ukraine. Now, it is very rare that I give the honor of someone invading a country to a single individual, but it is without dispute and without riposte. There is no argument. This is Vladimir Putin's war. This is a war Vladimir Putin personally decided to do. This is a war Vladimir Putin told his military and his country, I am going to do this. They have made up lots of reasons why Russia's invading Ukraine, but the fact is that Russia's not invading Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has decided to take Ukraine over. Period. So, having said that, if I try to get into a conversation with you all about the entire history of Ukrainian-Russian relations and Vladimir Putin's entire history and what's led up in the last 6 months, we'd be here till dawn. So what I was going to do tonight was more talk about the global repercussions of what is now an obvious truth. And the obvious truth, if you haven't gotten it yet, is that Russia has decided that the modern international order no longer applies. The United Nations is of no consequence. The international rule of sovereignty is of no consequence. That the way that the world has run itself and the 194 sovereign states of the world have run the world for the last 70 years since World War II is of no consequence. Vladimir Putin has decided yesterday, we don't care about the modern world anymore, and its systems do not register to Russia anymore. We are not paying attention to them anymore. We don't care about them anymore. We are starting our own new world system based on what Russia wants. Now, if that seems too extreme, good, because it is an extreme statement. And I'm suggesting that there is no going backwards from this. There is no Russia deciding tomorrow, oops, our bad. We're going to pull out the 190,000 troops. There's no going back. So tonight is a candid talk without a whole lot of maps and graphics, which I typically like because I like to show things and movements of things and where countries are. But I didn't have a whole lot of time, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense to actually talk to build a big PowerPoint presentation. This is more almost philosophical, ideological. What are the impacts to the world now that Russia has decided to leave the system? And I don't think that's an exaggeration. They have said, we're not doing it. We're just not going to do what you all have been doing since 1945. Okay, now before I start I'll start highlighting some of those points. Let me see, what am I behind on the chats? Rubik Cuber says, go with the flow. Plaid Princess is doing pretty well. Got lots of friends in Ukraine affected by this. Agreed. Sky Daddy, there it goes. Sky Daddy's got it fixed and hooked out. Ona D says, do people in Donetsk speak more Russian than in Kiev? Yes, that's an easy one to answer. Yes. If you look at the eastern side of Russia, most of them primarily speak Russia as their first language. Most of the people on the western side of Ukraine speak Ukrainian as their first language. By the way, virtually everyone in Ukraine speaks both languages. So it's a matter of what's more accepted in the kind of common vernacular on which side of the state. Vikram Tawari says, you're most probably going to explain this in a bit, but what will be the financial repercussions in stock market in the United States with the Russian invasion and perhaps when China moves into Taiwan? Yeah, it ain't going to be good, Vikram. I can tell you that right now. My 401k has gotten sliced in half, as will all of yours. for no good reason besides the rich people that control the stock market can manipulate it. But a crisis on the other side of the planet does not really affect us here, but it does anyway, because everybody gets their panties in a bunch and starts dumping stock so they can rebuy it back for cheaper later and make tons of money. The rest of us who just have stuff there in savings get screwed. That's the short answer. Checkle 10 says, what do you make of Russia taking control of Chernobyl, and what might the Russian Putin want there? Scoot Patoot says, yep, my 401ks already went south too. First time chatter from Huon Park 821. There's been a stock market crisis today. Yep, it's not over yet, by the way. Huon Park. I'm sorry, Huon Park. Unada says, where do you imagine Putin will stop, or how far will he go and invade? That is the billion-dollar question. My instinct is that, well, let me go ahead and just tell you what my instincts are about all this really quickly. Okay. The main point for tonight, without going into all the details of on-the-ground stuff or what even led to the on-the-ground stuff, my main point tonight is that Russia has declared we are no longer following the international order as it's been constructed since 1945. We do not like it. We feel humiliated by it, and we are going to undo it. That is what Vladimir Putin is saying with his taking over of Ukraine. We do not care about the current system. Okay? That's point one. I don't believe if Vladimir Putin was sitting in front of me right now, I'm not sure he would disagree with that. He also might likely kill me with a simple icy glare. I might die. Or a judo chop to the throat. So luckily he's not sitting in front of me. But Russia is retracting from the current global world order. And what I'm suggesting is we are on the cusp of a new global world order. I shouldn't say global world, that's the same thing. A global order, a world order that has been taken for granted since 1945, the end of World War II. All the countries got together, said war's bad, makes me sad. War is bad. Sovereign states fighting each other for territory is an old school way of approaching the world. Empire building is an old school way of approaching the world. Might makes right is an old school way of looking at the world. And so we in the modern world, to prevent World War III and pain and suffering of millions and trillions of people, are going to form the United Nations. And we're all going to respect each other's sovereignty, right? And we're going to resolve issues not by war, and we're going to resolve issues not by powerful empires taking over weaker states. We're going to resolve our issues at a table, wearing suits and ties and hashing things out in a global system that all of us have agreed to, of rules and norms and regulations that we all abide by. Let me stress it for the 10th time already in 10 minutes. Russia has, as of today, said we do not care about that anymore. We believe might does make right. We believe in the old school. Powerful empires should take what they want. In other words, sovereignty, as we have all come to accept it in today's world, no longer exists in the Russian world. We don't care about it. And in Russia's eyes, the only true sovereign states are those that can actually prove their sovereignty. Let's take a TV timeout. How does one prove its sovereignty? How does a state prove its sovereignty? Well, for those of you that took my class, you know that back in the day, I keep saying old school, pre-1945, the way that you proved sovereignty pre-1945 AD, the year of our Lord AD, was power. So you were a sovereign state if you could defend your borders and no one could mess with you. And the ultimate test, of course, was if you can kill your own citizens, if you can do anything you want to your own citizens and no one else can mess with you, you're sovereign. And what that means is no one else can mess with you because you're so powerful. If they tried to mess with you, you could repel them. You could repel invaders. You could fight off any attack, any infringement on your territory. You could beat them back. you are a powerful state. You can prove your sovereignty by repelling invaders. That is still, I'd say, that was the classic old school way of like, of course we're sovereign. You can't mess with us because if you do, you'll die. Now, there is a caveat to that. And the caveat, this is even old school. The old school caveat is that if you were not a sovereign state pre-1945, I'm sorry, you weren't a super powerful state that could repel all borders in 1945, even in 1800 or 1500 or the year 2 BC. If you weren't powerful enough to repel anyone that tried to take over your state, then you weren't really sovereign. But if you were friends with a really powerful, truly sovereign state who would stick up for you if someone tried to invade you, then you kind of were sovereign too. You're sovereign by proxy. So, you know what? Let's just bring it home to roost here in the modern era. Is Puerto Rico is actually not even a sovereign state. Technically, it doesn't have a seat at the United Nations. Puerto Rico is kind of independent. Puerto Rico could not really defend itself if Vladimir Putin decided to take over Puerto Rico. Could he? Sure he could. But he would never do that. Why? Because the United States, which is a sovereign state, both in the old school and new school senses, would not tolerate any other country messing with Puerto Rico. So in essence, by proxy, by default, Puerto Rico is sovereign because no one's going to mess with them. Got it? So old school sovereignty, you were either powerful enough to hold your own, or you were friends with a powerful entity that would defend you. Okay? Now, coming into post-World War II, to catch back up on history, we all decided, well, we don't really want countries beating the hell out of each other anymore and small states getting gobbled up by big states. So we're going to form up this whole thing that says we all respect each other's sovereignty. We are going to create these rules and a body that organizes these rules called the United Nations, and we're all going to agree we all respect blah, 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 fill in the blanks. To go back for the 10th time in 15 minutes now, Russia has said, we're going back to the old system. We don't care about this modern world of respect nonsense. We want Ukraine. We are taking Ukraine. We want it. We're taking it. We have the power to do it. No one can mess with us. We're taking it. The question is, where does that end? Okay? And will China follow suit with that and say, by the way, maybe we like the old school way of sovereignty too, where might makes right. And so I think I started on this rant by saying, are we now entering an age that's going a little bit back in time? And I believe we are. I believe we have this will officially be the day that modern sovereignty and the rules-based system of the United Nations is dead. It's maybe premature, but obviously Russia's saying we don't care. The big question is, will China? What will China do? Because if China says, you know what, we actually want to take Taiwan back and maybe some other territories. And you know what, Vietnam has always pissed us off. Maybe we should just go take over Vietnam. If China decides to go this route, then we are looking at the dawning of a new age. And I know the folks that just joined us from Facebook already heard me rant about this, but your eyes should be on China's response. Russia has already shown its cards in this high-stakes poker game. Vladimir Putin has already showed his cards. He's already said, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to take what I want. And I don't care about the rules system anymore. The cards are shown. He has no other bluffs. The country to watch now is China. What will they do? Are they going to follow Russia on this new path? And if that is the case, then we are 100%, this is the day a new world order starts. It really is all about China. Because Europe, the United States, Team West, Latin America, the Middle East, most African states, India, most of these regions / countries are likely to kind of stick with the system as it is. Okay? The question is, Russia will go it alone and be completely ostracized and alienated? That's one option, which means Russia suffers. Or if China, the new global superpower that's on par with the United States, if the other global superpower decides to join Russia in this new venture, that's the game changer. Russia's actually changing no game at all. Russia's reverting back to the past. The future depends on if China joins that path. And I know I'm going to run out of time because I haven't even got to like bullet point 2 of 500 or may even gone through 5,000 chats. I need to get to that too. But that's why I want to coalesce this thought for you to think about, get curious about, and go research and follow. That what I'm posing here is a dichotomy. We could be literally on day one of a new global order, and it's a dichotomy. That is two branches, all right? Two different systems coexisting beside each other. It's this or that. And the dichotomy, we have been living in a singular international order since 1945, okay? Keep this in mind, by the way. In 1945, China was still in a civil war. China had just on the cusp of the Japanese, which were taking over China, being defeated in World War II. China was a mess. China was in a civil war 20 or 30 years before the Japanese invaded. China was utterly destroyed from the inside out. 1945, 1946, China's weak. Okay, it's barely cobbling it together as a country. Russia was actually quite powerful. It had actually been an ally of Team West to help defeat Nazism. By the way, a term that Vladimir Putin threw out. He's now calling the Ukrainians Nazis. But Russia was actually kind of powerful at the end of World War II, but putting its own domestic house back in order. And then it crashed and burned in 1991. Soviet Union implodes. Everything goes south. So by the early 1990s, Russia is disintegrated and not doing well. China is just getting back on its feet from centuries of humiliation. So all of this coalesces in the 2000s when Russia gets back on track and China starts storming forward. And that's why where we're at 20 years later. That's why this is a real, to me, critical historical juncture that we're at. Because to talk about China and Russia in today's world and be like, well, they didn't think this way in 1945. They were entirely different countries in 1945. Oh, well, China and Russia were along for the ride for the classic definition of sovereignty in the United Nations in the year 2000. Yes, China and Russia were entirely different nations in the year 2000. That's just 20 years ago. 20 years later, both China and Russia are wildly different states in different levels of economic and political development, and both are quite powerful. More powerful than either of them have been since 1945. And actually before that for China. What I'm trying to express here is, here in 2022, both Russia and China are now more powerful than they have been since the modern global world order was put into play. Are you feeling are you catching what I'm throwing out there, peoples? Chat me up if you understand what I'm saying. To try to understand what's going on in today's world and why this Ukrainian invasion is so significant, I need you to confirm that you're hearing. Give me an amen. Praise Jesus. I need for you to hear me that Russia and China are at an apex of power they have not understood or felt for a century. And it's the same century that the current global order was put into place and has been operating. Thus, this is significant because at the height of their current modern power, they may both decide to walk away from that order that they did not build nor have agreed with entirely since 1945. Boom! I can mic drop it right there, but I should get into some specifics. That's the overarching big deal I wanted you to understand and get to help you understand why, again, this is such a big deal, because now I can kind of branch it off. If we are at the juncture I'm suggesting we're at, then the dichotomy of coming up for planet Earth is one that entails multiple levels, if not all levels, of human existence. Meaning, if China joins Russia, you could be looking at two different financial and banking systems evolve very rapidly. You could be looking at two distinctive and different defensive and military groups evolving very rapidly. You could be looking at two entirely separate energy sectors evolving very rapidly. And if you want to start asking questions, I'll try to zoom way back up in the chat room. But what I'm suggesting is if we are entering an era that I believe we're entering, then we could be up for two different United Nations. There could be two separate United Nations, two separate oil industries, two separate banking industries, two separate financial systems, two separate everything. Because if China sides with Russia and doesn't let Russia be completely ostracized from the global system, then the global system as it exists cannot hold. It cannot hold if two major players decide they don't want to play by the rules of that global order. I am exhausted, and it's been 30 minutes. Okay. I want to try to shout out and chat up as many people who have, oh my God, I'm panning back. There's like 10 million. Dark Knight says, took the class in 2005. Rachel Birch, I shout out. First time chat, Ryan, M444. First time, Kai73. Homeless Batman cracks me up. Gavin Linden says, the Blazer is amazing tonight. Thank you, Gavin. This is one of my favorites. Sloth Mode says, can't wait for this. I got Big Gifford, first time watching a video at 2x speed. Okay, I think I'm caught back up. I got it now. First time chatter. Oh, yeah. And there's Hi, Dad. I'm not sure which one of my children is saying that. Pan back down to...
Last one you answered was...
I see Huon Park, stock market crash. Huon Park says, call me Harold. Okay, Harold. Do you think sanctions will destabilize the world economy? Harold, yes. They will. Pain is coming for the world. Pain is coming for the world. And if the Team West countries decide that they want to try to hold the current global world order together, they have to punish Russia more and ostracize Russia more. And in doing so, they will punish and hurt their own populations. To an extent, they'll hurt Russian population more, but everybody has to understand that to ostracize, isolate, and punish Russia for flouting the global order will require pain and suffering by everyone who wants to keep the world order as it is. The question is, how many people want to keep the global world order as it is? It's so funny that there's 1 billion people on 1 billion TV stations right now and on the internet talking about the guns firing and all this and that, what Emmanuel Macron is saying, what Putin is doing, what is Biden going to do? And no one is talking about the big issues that I'm talking about, which is like, how is this going to remake the world? This is the much bigger issue. And the pain and suffering that's coming is coming because of the fight about the global order. It's not about Ukraine at all. Sorry to my Ukrainian friends. It sucks for you all. You're going to be Russian now. I'm not happy about that. I doubt you are either. But that's already a done deal. Okay? Ukraine is now part of Russia. You can wait and tell me I'm right tomorrow, or wait and tell me I'm right a month from now. It doesn't matter. Ukraine is part of Russia. Either Russia sets up a puppet state, or they just take it over and absorb it and say it's ours. One way or the other, Ukraine is now Russia. It may not be easy for them, but that's the way it is. The bigger issue is, How many people on planet Earth want to maintain the global system as it is, and how much pain are you willing to tolerate to keep that order? Vladimir Putin's Russia is betting you're not going to do shit. And I'm not making fun of Putin. He's a shrewd, smart dude. He's smarter than me. But he has calculated and thought about this 10,000 ways from Sunday. And he knows pain is coming for his country. He knows it might make him unpopular to some, but he has enough of an iron fist hold on the Russian population that he knows he can control them. He's also betting, though, that the world is not going to isolate and punish Russia because all the democracies on the planet who have to do the punishing will have too many unhappy people in their societies who will rail against it. You have Tucker Carlson and even Donald Trump now in the United States who are praising Putin for flouting the world order and taking over another country. By the way, I'm not political. I don't give two rats' asses about either one of those human beings. I don't care about the politics. I don't even care who gets elected president next go round, although I might come up in a second. I'm just saying Putin is banking on the fact that so many people are unhappy in the democracies of the planet that they won't tolerate any pain to punish Russia. In fact, I would bank on the fact, well, I can't say that because I can neither bank on it nor prove it's a fact. I would be willing to bet, if it were possible to prove, that the last thing that was holding Putin up from taking over Ukraine years ago was he felt like the West and Western societies would rally against him. And I believe in today's world, here in 2022, Putin has said, nope, America's divided house. Britain is a divided house. The EU is a divided house. They all are infighting with themselves so much. There's enough people that like me. There's enough people that love what I'm doing, even in America, that they will not suffer one iota. They will not suffer higher gas prices to punish Russia. And he could be right. He could be right. Okay. Thank you for that, Harold. Let's see. Sky Daddy says many people are comparing Putin to Hitler, partly because he claims sovereignty of ethnic peoples. That is a fair assessment. Didn't Hitler do this with Austria before World War II? You are correct. And would you agree with this statement? I do. The only thing about the Hitler comparison is that Putin has historical grievances tied to the dissolution of the USSR that he has made quite vocal for some time. He can also, unlike Hitler, he can also claim security issues. Russia lives, and this is historically, not just under Putin, for 1,200 years of Rus existence. Russians have fretted and fretted and fretted and worried and worried and worried about their territorial borders. Fretted, worried, and fretted. They live in perpetual stress about their borders. Perpetual. Most analysts, historians, people that study this stuff for a living, smarter than me, would all agree with that. They'd be like, no, it's one of the primary motivators of Russian foreign policy is protecting the borders, pushing back against transgressors. So that's part of Russian historical tradition, and Putin just plays right into that, especially since the borders retracted during Putin's lifetime. And they retracted when he was a member of the KGB, and he physically saw it as the Soviet Union imploded and went away. So in Putin's mind, he is looking at this as a leader of Russia saying, hey, we have a defense and security issue here. There's all these countries that used to be part of Russia and or part of the Soviet influence, including all of Eastern Europe, which used to be puppet states of the Soviet Union, puppet states of Russia. All of these areas over here used to be ours. And not only have we lost them, but they all joined NATO. They all joined NATO, and they all have NATO missiles and bombs and troops and tanks stationed in them right now, very close to Moscow. He has a legitimate gripe about that. And again, historically, the Russians have perpetually been insecure about their borders. So that's where the Hitler analogy doesn't play It doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for many Russians either. So if you went to the average Russian who might not even like Putin, and if you said, hey, Putin's like Hitler, they'd be like, what? No. We have legitimate gripes. Hitler was a psychopath who wanted to take over planet Earth. Putin may or may not be a psychopath. I don't know that he has global ambitions. He wants to restore Russia's pride, Russia's territorial integrity of, say, 30 years ago. And also, he can make the claim that he's restoring Russia's security, border security and defense. That's a claim that actually holds some water. So you can't go all in on the Hitler comparison. Well, it never makes any sense to do the Hitler comparison because, there's only one Hitler and he was Hitler. But Putin's claim that he has to go defend ethnic Russians is Hitler-esque. His ambitions are not comparable to Hitler's, I don't think. Okay. First time chatter from Cloudy XO. How do you feel about Ukraine's military strength compared to Russia's, and will any sanctions imposed today affect their operation? That's easy, Cloudy. Russia outguns Ukraine 10-1, if not 100-1 in every category of military power. All of them. From nuclear weapons all the way down to boots on the ground. So 10-1, an exponent bigger and more powerful, if not more. Will sanctions imposed today affect their operation? Not at all. Sanctions are a long-term game. They're a long game, so nothing's going to affect what's the game that's currently being played out here in the coming days, weeks, and months. Let's go first-time chatter. Bowls of sauerkraut. Bowls of sauerkraut. Will any country take Russia's side on the global stage? I've already now ranted about that for some time. North Korea will back Russia. Iran will likely back Russia. Syria will likely back Russia. The question is, will China back Russia? That's the only question you need to pay attention to. China's hedging its bets, which is what China does best. They are not going to outright say anything anytime soon. However, if they start doing much more economic cooperation with Russia, if they both decide to get off the U.S. dollar as the world global standard of monetary exchange, if anything like that happens and China's on board with Russia, now we're talking about a new ballgame. That's what I was ranting about. Now we've entered a dichotomy. We've entered a two-system global order. But no one's doing that yet. And China is a patient country. Unlike most, China's ultimately the most patient country. And they will let this play out. They will watch and see what happens to Russia for months, if not years, before they make any strategic huge play. They're not coming out next week saying we support Russia. No way. They'll see what pain is inflicted first before they make any major decisions. Flex Boyd said, did the invasion of Georgia suggest that Russia wanted to withdraw from the current world order in 2008? What differences are there between Georgia and this invasion of Ukraine? Thanks, Flex. The Georgia operation, while almost identical in the playbook, so for those of you that watched me do 2 different podcasts on Putin earlier this week, I outlined the whole playbook. It's amazing. Katie, am I wrong? It's amazing how well the playbook I outlined, Putin basically used the playbook last night. He must have listened to my podcast. He's like, well, Boyer outlined this. Yeah, I should do that again. His playbook is all about, I am the ultimate protector of Russian people, and I have to protect Russian people wherever they are. And so I have to go protect these Russian people who are getting genocided. Yes, I just made that into a verb. They're getting genocided in eastern Ukraine, a claim that there are no facts for. The Russians are really good at fake newsing and making up shit. They didn't even make up shit. They just said, this is happening. We're not even going to provide any fake stuff to support it. So he playbooked it out, and he did the same thing in Georgia. We have to go there because there's ethnic Russians we have to save from something. The Georgian situation is identical in every way except scale, Flex. The scale is the main thing. Russia took over very small little enclaves of a small country named Georgia. And they're mountainous areas in the middle of nowhere, unless you live there. They're in the middle of everything, but they're in the middle of nowhere. They don't border any other European countries. They don't border any huge U.S. allies. It's fringe. That was a fringe war from the global perspective. No offense to my Georgian friends. I love your wine, by the way. I love Georgian wine. I love the Georgian people. But that was a fringe takeover of small territories. The playbook remains the same, though, but now they're taking over Ukraine, a gigantic country. A gigantic country with 40 million people. A gigantic country with 40 million people that borders multiple EU countries. A gigantic country with 40 million people that borders EU countries that also used to be part of Russia's orbit and are now terrified Russia's going to invade them too. So the playbook's the same, but the scale and the situation are radically more important in taking over this gigantic country of 40 million people, many of which who had aspirations to join the EU and NATO and are westward leaning and want to maintain a democracy. So that is the significant big difference. The playbook's the same, though. Good question, Flex. Scoot Patoot says, curious how everything will look after this. Yeah, me too, Scoot. That's why we're here. First time chatter from alias JS. Wanted to know how you think NATO membership will change due to recent action. Finland's foreign minister has said he believes the debate on Finnish membership will change and that the option for Ukrainian membership should also remain open. Could we see Finland, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, etc. offered membership or seek membership more readily? Great first time chat / question, alias JS. And the answer to all those is yes. One of the things on my list of things to talk about for the next 16 hours is the outlook for NATO. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is definitely going to change. It already has. It was a thumbnail sketch of NATO just off the top of my head for the last 10 years. Let's say 20 years. For 20 years, NATO has been, I won't say in decline. Its members have actually increased. Its power has remained stable, if not stagnated. And in the last 5 years, and I'm speaking specifically now, don't get pissy with me if you're a Trump fan, but I'm thinking specifically since Donald J. Trump assumed the office of president in the United States, took a huge hit. Donald Trump didn't like NATO. He wanted to get rid of NATO. He actually might be right now saying NATO is still worthless. He said NATO was worthless. The other members weren't doing their part. It was a product of a bygone era of the old Cold War. Surprise! The Cold War's back. That's actually the title of my chat tonight. Cold War's back on. And the NATO was created to counter an aggressive and growing Soviet Union after World War II. And a whopping 5 years ago, Donald J. Trump said, that was way long time ago, and I never learned anything about World War II. Where was that at anyway? Why do we even have this NATO thing? The Russians aren't our enemies. There is no more Soviet Union. We don't even need it. Well, that's all changed as of yesterday. NATO's mission wasn't just dusted off. It was dusted off and injected with steroids 48 hours ago. So if Vladimir Putin's thought was that he was going to invade Ukraine to put the last coffin nail in NATO, he's getting the exact opposite. And all NATO countries now, including all of those countries in NATO that used to be part of Great Soviet Union, are living in mortal terror that Russia may try to basically take over all of Eastern Europe again. And so we have a revamping of NATO. The Cold War is officially back on as of today because all of those NATO countries are like, oh, no, we love NATO. Let's all exercise more. Let's all contribute more money. Everybody's throwing money into the pot. Everybody wants NATO troops on their soil. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, they're all saying, hey, buddies, anybody that wants to put troops on our soil, bring them in. I would be willing to bet that these countries, specifically Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, Romania, I'd be willing to bet, if I could prove it, that these countries behind the scenes might be saying, hey, can you bring nuclear weapons in? Dude, we will totally take some nuclear weapons right now. You know what's great about nuclear weapons? Nothing. But it's great for a sovereign state to possess one, because if any of these states possess a nuclear weapon, it makes Russia think very many times before invading them. So I can't help but think that behind the scenes right now, NATO are talking about troop deployment, forward missile defense systems, missile detection systems, ballistic missile stations, and yes, possibly nuclear missile stations being moved forward into Eastern Europe to stymie any thought Russia may have of continuing this machine in motion that they've started. And that's all I got to say about that. Actually, I have 10 million more things to say about NATO. I will offer this, because again, this whole talk is about the future impacts, or the current and future impacts of this invasion by Russia. It will 100% strengthen NATO, and strengthen NATO's resolve, and probably strengthen NATO's armaments. And this is why I'm saying the Cold War is back on. It is on, my friends. It don't even matter about the dichotomy and the two-world system that I suggested earlier. That may or may not happen depending on China. But the Cold War is back on. For all of the rest of Vladimir Putin's life, he has thrown the gauntlet down to the West, saying, I want the old ways back, and I don't care about the new rules. And so NATO has to respond in kind and say, then we're going to, okay, you don't respect the old ways, then we will play by the old ways handbook, which is we're going to beef up military because that's the only thing you're going to listen to. Basically, Vladimir Putin is saying, I'm only going to listen to powerful states that can stop me. I'm only going to pay attention to them. So NATO is going to respond in kind and say, that's fine. Then we'll tell you we're going to put a bunch of missiles and everything real close to you. So for those young folks out there, and by young folks I mean 30 years of age or less, you weren't alive for the Cold War. It officially ended in 1991. That is 30 years, right? That's the 30 years to the day.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Someone's asking about the flash quizzes. Is there anything you want to do with those folks here in this chat?
Yeah, how you tell me. The question is about flash quizzes, and I'm already like 3 flash quizzes behind. So I'm trying to think, how many of you would just like, say, 5 points for attending this right now and participating? And I'm trying to think, is there a way to chat with you one-on-one to get their... We have their screen name, but we have to tie that to a real-world name. I don't want anybody giving their real-world names here on an anonymous chat. But is there a way people can hit you up, Katie? What's your screen name? Is it Plaid, Katie?
Yeah, I think they can whisper at me.
If you can whisper to Katie your screen name here and your real name in real life.
Or if they want to send me an email.
Oh yeah. Or you know what? Or just
Google form. Let's see. That might...
Google form. Or send me an email. We have your screen name. I could do that. You want somebody to tell them to do that? Send me an email. That makes it more official. If you're in my class right now and you would just like 5 points for being here, you have to email me right now. And actually just simply emailing me using your Virginia Tech address. That's your PID.
Yeah.
Do we have that in Moodle?
Yeah.
Just email me your name and your screen name, and then make any comment in here. Make any comment that I can then therefore say, well, you participated. It's a participation grade. How about that? And I'll try to do some sort of flash quiz, but you know what? If you want extra points, you can also email me some questions. Literally write a question I would build into a quiz for this podcast, and that will get you a couple other more points. How about that? Okay. So NATO, email me if you're in the class. And by the way, well, actually, no, I'm not going to say anything else. I'll talk with you via email to get you more points. with questions and perhaps past participation in these Twitchcasts. So NATO is being strengthened as we speak, has more resolve than ever. But I got to tell you, friends, here's another giant repercussion of the future due to this Russian invasion. And this is now bringing it closer to home, and this may piss off some political people, but I'm not here to make friends or make you happy. I'm not here to tell you the way the world should be. I'm here to tell you the way the world is. And so, without any reservation, I can tell you that the future of the world will be heavily impacted by the next U.S. presidential election. And I will be more specific. Not trying to make you happy or sad or worried. I want you to understand the world. It does appear at this juncture that Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, does utterly and outright control the Republican Party. For those of you not Americans, the Republican Party is the pseudo-conservative party in a two-party system in America. They are the pseudo-conservative side. I say pseudo-conservative because I really don't know what the Republican Party is in today's America. But Donald J. Trump controls the Republican Party. It appears he will run for president again in a few years. I'll tell you straight up. To me, it appears he will win. If Donald J. Trump wins the next U.S. presidential election, NATO will be significantly weakened, if not abandoned, by the United States. Donald Trump in the past has suggested he does not like this entity, and has also suggested he has huge admiration for Vladimir Putin. So again, I'm just assessing what's going on here, looking at it critically as an objective viewer. I'm not making fun of Donald Trump, but I want you to understand that if he wins the next U.S. presidential election, that is a game changer for NATO and the entire world. Because I do believe he will walk away from NATO, thereby significantly decreasing its threat of countering Russia, which then might lead Russia to be more empowered to do whatever it wants. That, again, this is speculation, but this is speculation based on just observation of the way things are going and the way things might go if these things fall into place. So again, I'm not trying to terrify anybody like, oh, you should get out and vote. Whatever. I'm a future historian. I think I'm going to put that on my business cards. Meaning I'm not really a historian. I'm an armchair historian of stuff that's past. I'm a future historian. I'm in the future already thinking about how this is going to be written when it goes down. So the upcoming U.S. election is very significant to how a lot of these things are going to play out for the rest of your lifetimes. I'm almost dead, so I'm getting ready to tap out. But you all have a ways to go, and the things that are happening now in the United States will radically impact this. I've already now pointed out two things. China's behavior and China's path forward with or without Russia will have a huge impact on global events. And the United States' next election will also have a huge impact on the world's future events, depending on who gets into power and their attitude towards Russia and their attitude towards NATO and their attitude towards the current global order. Remember, I keep stressing, I'm talking about the challenge to the current global order is the main thing here. And both the Chinese way forward and the next U.S. election will either reinforce that current global order or they will help tear it down. Straight up. Either or will start to tear down the current global order. Both together, China joining Russia, a Trump-dominated America that retracts from the world stage and from NATO, those things in combination wipe out the current world order, and we have a new one that will come into play. Maybe it'll be better. I kind of don't think so from personal perspective of I like human rights and freedom of speech and liberty and democracy. And so that new order may not be great for the things that I cherish, but they might be great for other folks who live in other places and like other things. I try not to be too judgmental. Okay. But I went off on that rant just talking about NATO. Yes, NATO is being strengthened. And Alias JS, good call. You know your history. For those of you that do not know, Finland is not a NATO member. Finland is a part of the EU. Finland is part of Team West. Finland is eminently Western. Okay? Democracy, capitalist, all of it. However, Finland is not part of NATO, and there's a reason for that. If I were to give a test question or give a test on this lecture, the reason Finland is not a member of NATO is because after World War II, when NATO was being formed and the United States and its allies were still kind of friends with the Soviet Union. Remember, the Soviet Union was an ally of the West in World War II, fighting against Hitler. And so at the end of World War II, they were starting to diverge on their paths. Team West and the Soviet Union were starting to diverge. The Cold War wasn't completely cold yet. And it's when NATO was forming up. And when Finland expressed interest or was invited to join NATO, the Soviet Union said, hey, whoa. We share a border with them. Come on, guys. That's a little offensive that you would have a defensive group that might have missiles stationed in it literally on our border. And at the time, the NATO countries, led by the United States, said, fair enough. That's a fair argument. And even in Finland, the Finnish debated this within themselves. And they said, you know what, Russia? We won't join NATO. We'll sign a non-aggressive pact between us. We will not join NATO as long as you promise never to do anything bad to us, and we'll let it go. And that's why Finland is not a member of NATO. That was a status that was held since 1947, or 1948. When did NATO form up? I want to say 1949. And so that's been the status of Finland. And Alias JS points out, that might be changing now because this is a different Russia. And giving its invasion of Ukraine and now its complete disregard for the current system of sovereignty, Finland has expressed very recently in the last 2 weeks of maybe we better join NATO. So you actually, much to the chagrin of one Vladimir Putin, you actually may see NATO expand. I mean, which will infuriate him, and then he gets to go to the Russian people and say, oh, look, they're coming to attack us. But I think everyone on both sides of the argument will understand why Finland might want to join NATO now to ensure they don't suffer the same fate as Ukraine. Georgia might also really want to join, but again, that might be too much of a flashpoint to start World War III too quickly. So will other countries be invited? I don't know. Finland will be the test run on that, and I'll give you 90-10. I'm giving it 90% Finland is invited to join NATO, and maybe within the coming months. You heard it here first. And I'll give you a 99% odds they join if they're invited. Why wouldn't you? Okay. Jor Machine says, responding to Bowl of Sauerkraut, first time chatter from Casey Leanne, are we about to enter a World War III? No, don't dig a bunker just yet, Casey Leanne. I think that is the fear of many, and who the hell am I? I'm just some crazy college professor here in Southwest Virginia. So no one knows for sure, but I'd like to think, and maybe I'm repeating myself, I'd like to think that Putin is a very aggressive and domineering leader, and he has an extreme amount of national pride, and he could be very insulated right now, both economically, financially, but even socially, that everyone around him tells him how awesome he is. So he may think that everything he does is wonderful and great. And maybe he even believes the entire Russian population loves him and loves everything he does. I'm willing to think maybe all that is true, but I'm hoping he's not a psychopath. And so all of that could be in his brain, but unless he's a psychopath, he wouldn't be willing to risk that to start World War III just to try to invade more post-Soviet countries. To push it any further than Ukraine would be to say, I don't give a damn about World War III. I'll kill you all. And I'm hoping he's not that much of a psychopath. But I do not know the man personally, obviously, so I can't speak to that. But he's been in power for 21 years now. He's built up to the position he's in. He has done well by Russians. The average Russian thinks quite highly of him. But then to have all the Russians killed in a World War III scenario, I don't think so. Boy, I sure hope not, because that means a bunch of us are going to die too. So I don't think so. You have to be at a really different level of psychopathy to enter that realm. Ona D says, do you think this will end up with a West Ukraine and a Russian East Ukraine? That actually, Ona D, would be the best case scenario at this point. I think it's a much greater scenario. Did I do this on Facebook or did I do this here already? So there's 3 scenarios of what's getting ready to happen in Ukraine. What's that?
I don't think I've got.
That's fine. There's three possibilities for Ukraine at this juncture. None of them involve Ukraine being free. So option 1, and I think it's the likely option, seems to me to be the likely option. Option 1, Russia invades the whole country tomorrow, gets rid of the president, and then, just like they did in the Crimean Peninsula, they say, look, everybody in the West, you guys need to chill. We're the good guys. All of these ethnic Russians were being killed and attacked. There was a genocide occurring. We're only here to help. So we're here in Ukraine, and now that it's free, now that we freed it, now we're going to hold elections and allow the Ukrainian people to vote for who they want to be in charge. And in those free and fair elections, 99.999999% of Ukrainians will vote to put a pro-Russian, maybe ethnically Russian president in charge who loves Russia and wants to join Russia. And that will be the election. And then Russia will say, see, we told you. And now we can pull out all our military because they're free now and everything's okay because the entire government is pro-Russian. That is the most predictable thing because that's how they ran all of Eastern Europe during the Soviet Union. Remember, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, these were all supposedly sovereign states, but they were basically puppet states. All the government was Russian people who just wanted to pretend like they were sovereign, but they were all run from Moscow. That's what I believe is the most likely because that's their playbook. That's what they're used to. That's option 1. Option 2 is they just take the whole damn thing. And they say, we don't give a shit anymore. We consider this historically Russian territory. And Putin has said this actually this week. He said, there is no such thing as Ukraine anyway. It's made up. Okay, fair enough, buddy. That's your interpretation of history. And so they may say, we don't give a shit. It's ours. We've already offended you all. So what the hell would we even pretend for? So this is now officially Roman Orthodoxy, even though that's a Catholic thing. You're ordained. You're the 51st state of Russia. And I only say that because there's 50 states in America. I don't know how many damn states there are in Russia. They may just outright absorb it and say, nope, you're part of Russia now. Much like Virginia is a state of the United States, Ukraine, they may be preordained as you're the Ukrainian state of Russia. I say that's a decent possibility, perhaps. The third option is the one that intrigues me the most, and I'd be surprised if this happens, but not shocked. And the third option is, let me go see if I can find this on the intrawebs real quick. The third option would be Map of Ukraine voting in 2010. The third option is that I'm trying to, but this took me to Google News instead of what I wanted. Ukraine voting map of 2010. Yes, I'm speaking out loud because this is how my brain works. There's the image I wanted. And there's the image it might end up being. Open image. Open image in new tab. Thank you, Googles. But it's not working. There it is. Okay, so now I can go to here. So third option is presentation mode. Boom! Third option is this map, which strangely enough isn't a map that I've drawn or that Putin drew about what territories he's going to take over. This is a voting map of the 2010 election in Ukraine, in which they voted, the sub-states in red voted for a pro-Russian president, who won the election, by the way. Then he was overthrown and thrown out of office in 2014 in something called the Euromaidan clashes, for those of you that follow the news, and fled to Russia. And so what this map is really showing you is the pro-Russian states of Ukraine versus the ones in blue, which are pro-Western states of Ukraine. And so option 3, and I actually predicted this on Monday before Putin even invaded. I said, well, here's what I think he might possibly do. The dark red ones are the dark red states on this voting map are ones that Russia outright already controls and has recognized the independence of. Primarily the Crimean Peninsula, which they took over by force. And then Donetsk and Luhansk are those states on the very eastern side of Ukraine, which Putin recognized on Monday as their own independent entities and then sent Russian troops in to protect the Russian people there. So that's why I was making this calculated prediction that this could be the future map of what's left of Ukraine, because the states in red not only are pro-Russian, or at least they have sizable minorities or majorities that are pro-Russian, they have a large ethnically Russian population within them, either a majority or minority, ethnically Russian. And these are the folks that Putin has been saying on multiple addresses that I am in charge of saving all the Russian people worldwide. It doesn't matter what state they're in. So I have to go protect ethnically Russian people. And in the address he gave yesterday morning, as he was sending troops in to invade Ukraine, he was saying, there's genocides occurring in Ukraine. They're killing ethnic Russians. I have to go save the ethnic Russians in Ukraine. I have to, because I am the Slavic savior. I'm sorry, the Slavic savior. I just invented the future. Putin is the Slavic savior. Damn it, that's a whole separate podcast. The Slavic savior. I'm going to save all the ethnic Russians around the world. I'm the savior. And so he said in his address, there's genocide occurring. They're killing Russians, so I have to run in there and save them. Okay? And these places are already mostly Russian and wanted to be independent of Ukraine and want to be part of Russia anyway. So we're there. It's done. We're all good. So option 3 is that he follows that framework, the playbook of saving Russians, and he follows the playbook all the way through and carving up Russia and carving up Ukraine. And says, well, all of these states here are the ones that are kind of Russian or pro-Russian. So we're just going to take those and make those part of Russia, because we already took Crimean Peninsula. And it gets them what they really want. What Putin really wants is all the Black Sea frontage. He wants all that coastline because it's a critical port for Russia for their entire navy as well. And it also, in one fell swoop, would make it easier for him, because if the Russians take over all of Ukraine, then they have to physically occupy all of those blue states you see on this map. And by occupy, I mean there's millions and millions and tens of millions of people who are not ethnically Russian and don't like Russia in those blue states. And so it's going to be easy for Russia to militarily take over this territory. Again, they radically outgun the Ukrainians. They can physically take it, but then you have to hold it. And it's going to be much tougher to hold those blue areas than the red ones. Again, the red ones are ethnic Russian minorities, ethnic Russian majorities, Russian-speaking majorities, speaking Russian as a first language, or areas like Luhansk and Donetsk that have Russian rebels in them. So it might be a smart move for Putin to say, I'm just going to take the red areas because I have affiliation with these folks, or they have affiliation with us, without having to deal with the occupation of having to beat the shit out of 10 or 20 or 30 million Ukrainians who are pro-Western and don't want to have Russia in charge. So this is an option 3. I think it's much trickier. It makes more sense from a practical standpoint, but then again, Putin is not particularly being practical right now. He's invading other countries. The other thing that was brought up 2 nights ago when we podcasted was there's a stretch of Moldova. You see that little country right there called Moldova? There's a stretch of Moldova on the border with that red state in Ukraine that's called Transnistria or Transdniester. And it has a significant ethnic Russian population that has been petitioning to rejoin Russia for decades. So it makes sense for Putin to be like, well, we're already there. We got to take Transnistria as well. And Moldova's not that big. We might as well take that as well. So it's hard to tell where he'll stop. But everywhere else around him, Poland and Romania, Hungary, and others are NATO members. So unless he wants to start World War III, he's not going any further than this map right here lit up, plus or minus Moldova. Does that make sense? I sure hope so. Okay, I know I'm like 55 pages behind on things. Okay, let's see. Do we know it's a Russia?
Maybe on your Moldova, is there any reason Russia not to invade Moldova? Are you
Is there any reason for Russia not to invade Moldova?
Or Georgia immediately after Ukraine?
Or Georgia. Only that it makes them. Only that it makes them bigger liars than they already are. And I try to be balanced. I'd say I'm not making fun of Putin, but I am making fun of him a little bit. So again, Putin's playbook is, I am the Slavic savior. Damn it. See, big news organizations are going to totally steal that from me. I am the Slavic savior. I am a good person. Russia is a good country. We are good. We are fighting for good. We are fighting to go save Russians. They can portray that mythology to themselves. They can portray it to their public. But invading Moldova, which has no Russians in it, besides Transnistria, which I believe they definitely will take. But if they invade the rest of Moldova or invade Georgia, there are no ethnic Russians there. And to my knowledge, no Russians under threat there. So it would unwind their own narrative. It would undo their own mythology, aka it would undo their own line of bullshit that they're using to invade Ukraine right now. Again, they may not care about that at this point, but they have been doing a marvelous job. I hate to use the word propaganda. Propaganda is a too much used word. Propaganda to me means you're trying to influence people to do this. This isn't propaganda. This is just lying, all right? Putin is saying, oh, there's all this genocide occurring. That's not propaganda. That's a lie. And so the line of bullshit that he's feeding the Russian people, that's getting some traction, at least with some, would be undone if they then go invade a country that doesn't have Russian people in it. So I think he would refrain from doing that. But again, once we've now gotten this far down the path, he may just say, I don't care about the rules at all anymore. I don't care about any of the rules anymore. So he may just keep on rolling. But he won't roll into a NATO country unless, again, he wants the death of human civilization, which depends on his level of craziness. I actually don't think the man is crazy. Boy, I sure hope not. Okay. I see Flexible Boys first time chatter from Morbis02. Boyers had Russian students. That is true. I have. Let's see. Harold says, you think Due to Russian-Ukraine war, other countries like Taiwan or South Korea will have any sovereignty threatened. Yes, Harold. And in fact, let me go back to reinforce something I already said, which maybe I'm going in circles now. But I believe in my heart of hearts, as I'm standing before you now on Twitch, the greatest educational platform available on planet Earth. As I live and breathe, I truly believe this. We have now reverted to old school sovereignty. And I've now pointed out what that means. One, you're powerful enough to prove no one can invade you by repelling them if they try. Two, you have a very powerful, huge ally that will defend you if anybody tries to invade you. South Korea, I believe, has still 20 to 23,000 U.S. troops stationed in it. That's rule number 2 of old school sovereignty. If China or anybody else wants to invade South Korea, they're picking a fight with the United States, and that makes them think twice. Same is true with Japan, U.S. ally. Same is true with North Korea, by the way. Why doesn't South Korea just invade? Why doesn't the U.S. just bomb North Korea? Because they have China as an ally who would help them and start World War III. And now we actually have to start crystallizing things to who has nuclear weapons, too, because that's going to be the game changer. Something else that's one of the highlights I have for the way the world is going to change starting now, nuclear proliferation is going to commence like you have not witnessed in your lifetime. If you're less than 40 years old, this is the first time in your life you're going to see more nuclear weapons created than less. So I'm old enough that I lived through the Cold War, at least the back end of it. And throughout the entire 70s and 80s, there was a nuclear arms race between the United States and Soviet Union. And both of them were building as many nuclear weapons as they could to keep up, to be able to compete with the other, to make sure that whoever was the last man standing had more bombs than the other one. And largely since the Soviet Union collapsed and went away, people have been retracting on building nuclear weapons. And the world's had a moratorium on it. And it's in bad taste if you try to develop nuclear weapons. And countries get isolated if they try to build nuclear weapons. I don't know. Look at Iran. Look at North Korea. Look at Syria. These are all places that have or are trying to build nuclear weapons. And the world in general, including China and Russia, have said, hey, that's not cool. The world doesn't need any more nuclear weapons. I believe the other major game changer starting today is that's changing. We're going north on nuclear weapon development. And why would I suggest that? All I got to ask you is a very simple question. Do you think Ukraine wishes it had nuclear weapons right now? Do you think? Do you think maybe they wished they'd have held on to the nuclear weapons that were left in their country when the Soviet Union collapsed? At one point in 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed and Ukraine became a sovereign state in its own right, it had a bunch of missiles that were put there by Soviet Union. And actually, there was a huge negotiation that the United States helped with to make sure that all those nuclear weapons got out of Ukraine and went back to Russia proper. Because they didn't want the Ukrainian mafia getting a hold of them, which was extremely likely. So in hindsight of that, you got to think the Ukrainians are like, damn it. If we just would have held on to some nuclear weapons, it would be a different situation for us right now. And that is true. Again, what's good about nuclear weapons? Nothing. But if you got one, nobody messes with you. So I got to think, given what Russia is doing right now, they single-handedly are opening the floodgates for a bunch of countries to be like, well, I don't want to get stuck like that. We're not going to get screwed like Ukraine did. We're getting a nuclear weapon. Because once you have just one nuclear weapon and a big entity wants to mess with you, you can make so much pain rain down on them that they're very hesitant to do it. Does that make sense? So Ukraine even had one nuclear weapon. They are close enough to Moscow that Russia would have to think very, very, very hard before it did the invasion that it started yesterday. Just one nuclear weapon would have changed the equation for this invasion. Oh, and that rhymed. Wasn't that delightful? A rhyming death on nuclear weapons. I got to think that all of the countries of Eastern Europe now will be clamoring for more weapons, and nuclear weapons specifically. And again, this is a global repercussions talk I'm doing right now. Other countries around the world are looking at this going, oh, wait a minute. Are we going back to the old school rules of sovereignty? Then we need to get a nuclear weapon because we're not strong enough to repel China or Russia or the United States. And we don't have perhaps don't even have a good enough friend. We don't have a strong enough ally who will defend us. But a nuclear weapon will help. Does that mean I'm saying a nuclear weapon equates to having true sovereignty? Yeah, I might. I think I'm getting close to saying that. So you're strong enough to repel invasions, get you sovereignty. You have a strong ally who will defend you, get you sovereignty. If you've got a nuclear arsenal, you probably have sovereignty as well. I just changed my opinion, friends. I just found a third way to sovereignty in the new world order that Russia is unleashing upon us. Boom. Okay, back to the comments, of which I have 10 million. Let's see. Morbus says South Korea should be powerful enough to ward off the North, right? No. The South Koreans are technologically capable, but do not have the armed personnel that the North does, and neither do they have a nuclear weapon or as many ballistic weapons that the North now probably has. Let's see. Multiple protests and hundreds throughout Russia today protested. Not everyone is happy or supportive. That is true, and all of them, 100% of them, got arrested. It's not a great place to live if you like freedoms and stuff. Ashley, 98 in his welcome, says, dang, I'm late. Yeah, but you put that in an hour ago. So you guys still heard me rant for quite some time. Problem with South Korea is most of their pop is in Seoul, which North Korea has everything pointed at. True. Alb 1024. Harold says, China is a big country with lots of army. China has the largest standing army on planet Earth and is a nuclear power. Let's see. Ashley says, completely unsurprised. All this is happening now. It's been coming for a while. Neither am I, Ashley. Not surprised at all. First time chat from Lolatech. Lolatech says, what level of international interference would cause Putin to take action against them? Let me think about that. Level of international interference would cause Putin to take action against them. Considering that methods such as sanctions have started, how far would other countries be able to go before Russia truly takes action against them? Okay, I got it now. Keeping in mind he has threatened dire consequences that countries that interfere. Yes, for those of you that did not see Vladimir Putin say that earlier today, in his address when he said, I'm invading Ukraine, he said, if anybody tries to mess with us invading Ukraine, you will get consequences the likes of which have never been experienced on planet Earth, or something to that effect. Basically, nuclear weapons. He's saying, if anyone messes with us, we'll launch nuclear weapons at you. And you're like, okay, buddy, but you do realize that if you do that, then nuclear weapons will be launched on you. But hey, I guess you haven't seen Dr. Strangelove yet, or any number of nuclear scenario films. Okay, that's fine. Your question is, how far can people go before he responds? Unknown, Lolatech. Sorry for such a simplistic answer, but no one knows the state of Putin right now. He has, again, committed to the demolition of the current world order. That I am confident in. What countries might specifically do to cause him to do something to them? Unknown. But again, you will see many more countries clamoring either to join NATO, which helps the safety of their sovereignty, helps make them more sovereignty to join NATO, because then you have powerful allies, or to get nuclear weapons. So again, don't know what Russia will specifically do a day, a month, a year from now. I can tell you for sure NATO will grow. Nuclear proliferation will grow. A dichotomous two-world system will grow. And if China joins Russia, the United Nations will likely disintegrate into a two-tiered system. Those things I can tell you with much more certainty. What Putin will do or Russia will do, I don't know. Nobody does. They don't even know. Rubik's Cuber says, I am Johnny. Oh, that's when I was calling for a shout out. I see amens, quite volatile. I hear you, Boyer. First time chatter from Mr. Nevs says amen. Thank you for that. Amen. Amen from Sloth. First time chatter, Paisano Bean. Paisan. I love the word Paisan. Great screen name, Paisano Bean. First time chatter from Saraxel. Amen from Saraxel. Harold says amen. Fierce Pineapple in the house. Shannon Akins. J. Mr. Manola. Only here for the Plaidcast. Welcome back. Only here for the Plaidcast. The Velociraptor rears his ugly head. First time chatter from Him Manshu. From Ashley98. From Dark Knight. I got a lot of amens. I gotta start a church. Oh, I know. I remember when I said, give me an amen if you understand. Give me a shout out. Give me a hallelujah if you understand what I'm talking about. A Scoop Patoot says, also concerned about the economic impact should China take Russia's stance. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. First time chat from Mike14 who says amen. Alb1024, U.S. still solos. I'm not sure what that means. I've lost the thread of that conversation. Mr. Manolo also says a world global order forged by the West, never really accepted by some. Correct, Mr. Manolo. That's what I'm raging about. Remember, that's what I was getting the amens for, is some, particularly China and Russia, were not explicitly or intimately involved in the creating of the current world order. Russia was at the table, but Russia was the Soviet Union in 1945, and they just politely declined to partake of the building of that world order. They ultimately went along with the United Nations, but they were on their own path, a path that led to nowhere. Sorry, Russians, true. And then they had to rebuild themselves starting in 1991. China wasn't even at the table. So both of those countries are now at the pinnacle of their power for quite some time and may just be disagreeing with the system that they did not particularly have a lot to do with building. Okay? First time chatter from Brown Miller Group. So will either country assume the role of global hegemon? No, Brown Miller Group. I do not believe we're going to see a single hegemon anymore on planet Earth. And that's kind of the point. Both Russia and China have and will continue to make the argument that the United States was a global hegemon for far too long, that the United States' time as a hegemon was destructive, disruptive. They didn't like it. They disagreed with it. I am not agreeing nor disagreeing with their statements that Russia and China might make about the U.S. as a global hegemon. I just want you to understand that many countries, even other ones besides Russia and China, have chafed at the United States as the singular global superpower. Chafed. And, you know, the United States may have not actually done anything specific to them personally, but the United States played an overinflated role in everything that happened on planet Earth. We, being citizens of the United States, it's all fine and dandy with us. Everything was rosy, right? Most Americans actually have no clue what the hell goes on in the rest of the world because we were the global hegemon. So those days are over, quite frankly. Donald Trump coming to office, to me, was the beginning of that coffin being built, because he personally and his followers and fans, who are now some senators and congresspeople, there's a growing group of even Americans who say, we don't want to be the global hegemon anymore. We don't want to be involved in foreign wars. We want to retract. We don't want to be in charge. America first. Let's just do America. And that's a popular sentiment throughout history, different times and different places. Nothing's new, by the way. If you study history or just pay attention to shit, everything you think's offensive and crazy and wild or weird happening in America or Great Britain or China, it's all happened before. None of this is new. Make America great again? Dude, that's happened a million times in a million places. But it's important to note that it's happening now at a time that I keep coming back to. Russia and China are on the rise and have been pushing back against U.S. global hegemony at the same time that people within the United States are retracting from the U.S. as a global hegemon. So you have these two forces colliding, which is why I said the next U.S. election is really critical in understanding what direction the world's going to go in. Again, no judgment on my part. I'm not saying be upset, go vote Democrat, go vote right. I ain't saying nothing. I'm saying what happens in the U.S. election will affect planet Earth in these very big ways. And I know I'm still 5,000 comments behind, but let me throw out a few other things for you to think about. I keep coming back to this idea that we could be developing or evolving into a two-system world, okay? So there has been a singular United Nations, a singular idea of sovereignty, a singular trade, an economic system. We have the WTO, and United Nations and sub-branches of the United Nations, and an international banking and finance system that all countries are tied into. The only ones that aren't, like North Korea, that pulled itself out of it because they're crazy and then started to develop nuclear weapons, so they got kicked out altogether. But it's very rare that there's any country on planet Earth that's not kind of woven into this singular system. Economics first and foremost, but politics even after that when you think about, again, norms and standards of the global world order. Keep saying global world, global order. This two-tiered system, not tiered, two separate systems that I think we might be seeing involve all that stuff I just talked about. So what's the point of Russia being at the United Nations, especially because it's on the Security Council and can veto everything and anything all the time? What's the point of having Russia in that system when they are saying, we Russia don't believe in any of the rules anymore. We don't care. What's the point of having them in the United Nations then? What's the point? They're saying, I don't believe in the United Nations, so why would you have them at the table? There's no point to that. So you could see the United Nations not just implode or go away, but evolve out to be like, hey, look, either the United Nations has to change, Russia's got to be off the Security Council, or we increase the Security Council, or we get rid of veto powers. Something has to change internally, or it becomes two. So it could very well be that the United States and its allies, Team West and many other countries, say, hey, this is a worthless system. Again, especially if China joins Russia, this is a worthless system. If these two countries say, I don't believe in the United Nations and we don't care about your rules, then there's no point in having you in our club. So we're going to have our own club over here. You call it United Nations Western Division. And then the Russians and Chinese, if the Chinese join, may say, well, that's fine. We're going to have a United Nations Eastern Division. So you could see that possibly. I'm suggesting it's much deeper than that, mostly economically. And so here's what I'm going to throw out for you to consider. The world is currently economically tied to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is the absolute international soup du jour exchange monetary unit. Has been since World War II, still is. Both Russia and China have flirted with getting off that system for years, if not decades. I remember reporting in class ever since the growth of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, of which Russia and China are the main members. They have flirted with this idea of getting off the US dollar and tying all their trade and exchange to the Chinese yuan, the Chinese dollar. They have flirted with that in the past. So I envision, if this dichotomy opens up, as I'm suggesting, that you might see Eurasia, China, Russia, and its satellites say, you know what? We don't give a shit about the Western-led financial system. By the way, I've been thinking critically about this a lot because one of the big levers that the West is threatening Russia with is to kick them out of the SWIFT system. Has anybody heard of this? Have any of you heard of the SWIFT system? I can't even pretend like I know what it is. But it basically, to my limited knowledge, is the international banking system, that everybody's part of this, that there's a system of exchange and rules and regulations and this thing called SWIFT that everybody's a part of, that you can move money around to banks and banks lend money to this country or to this central bank and money moves this way. It's the main way that money is moved, let's say, for argument's sake. One of the big threats that the West is leveraging on Russia right now is, if you go any further than Ukraine, we're going to kick your asses out of SWIFT, which means you're not in the international system anymore. Literally, you won't be able to move any money, period. None of your corporations, not your government, nothing. That's a very big deal. The European states are really worried about that and don't want to do it because it's going to cause massive global disruption. But it would significantly damage Russia. I'm suggesting if we start down this road, Russia and China might, as early as next month, say, you know what? We're going to set up a separate financial system on planet Earth that's not tied to the dollar and it's not tied to SWIFT. Therefore, our enemy, the United States and Team West, can't leverage that against us. They can't threaten that. If China invades Taiwan, they might want to not be tied to the US dollar. They might not want to be tied to the SWIFT system if China decides to do the same things that Russia's doing. See where I'm going with this? So you could see a separate UN forming out. You could see a separate financial and banking system roll out. And I want to end with this. You might see a separate energy grid roll out. Because the other thing that's of great consideration here is that Russia is in the position to invade other countries and be strong and resilient and rebuilt its military in a huge way in the last 20 years because of oil. Russia is a major, if not the biggest, oil exporter on planet Earth. Russia's economy is basically a one big gas station and a bunch of hackers around the edge. That's their economy. So they have been made billions, if not trillions, which affords them the ability to do all the things that Vladimir Putin wants to do. And it also gives them leverage against the West because they provide tons of oil and natural gas to all the European countries, to the Central European countries, but also Germany, the economic powerhouse of Europe. So they can say, if you piss us off too much, if you try to do anything with us, if you try to mess with Russia, we will turn off the power to your whole subcontinent. And they can. So, by the way, side note, did you need another reason, planet Earth, to get off reliance on fossil fuels? Did you need another reason? Did you need another reason to go green and go solar? I mean, to me, my whole lifetime, I've always been mystified why more countries haven't wanted to get off petroleum to prevent this exact scenario, that you're beholden to countries that you don't like for energy. And Russia is playing their cards magnificently, and they know. They're like, you guys ain't going anywhere. You're not going to do nothing to us. Otherwise, your power goes out. So because of Russia's dominance and money influence in the energy sector, you may see, this is if things start to divulge and we start to go into a two-system world, you could see the European states saying, you know what, screw you. We'll get our energy elsewhere. The United States is actually stepping up they're going to pressure all of their Middle Eastern country friends like Saudi Arabia to start producing mad tons of oil. The United States is actually a big oil producer. The United States has already said, hey, we'll start sending oil and natural gas, selling that oil and natural gas to Europeans so you don't have to rely on Russia. So there's a variety of things that are global in perspective that are going to be affected if Russia keeps pissing off too many other countries. It will change the future of energy networks. So right now it's a global system, and these countries make petroleum and energy, and these countries export, and these countries import, and it's a very interlaced web. Meaning, even in the United States, we're a huge oil producer, but we use it all. We're a huge oil user. So even though we have a bunch of oil, we actually import oil from other places, and strangely enough, we also export oil. So in some circumstances, it makes sense to pull oil out of the ground in Texas and sell it over here and then buy Russian oil and bring it in from here, and then produce some oil and fracking gas here that we use here, but then some of that fracking gas we move down here. It's very interwoven. And what I'm suggesting, with some confidence, quite frankly, if Russia continues to piss off everyone, and then also uses oil as a strategic weapon to punish anyone who disagrees with them, it could backfire on them big time and cause a move towards not only green energy, but cause a movement towards everyone reframing where they get energy from. So they don't, it's easy to get it from Russia because they got a ton and they're close by. But there are other alternatives. There always are. And green alternatives are, of course, the one that some of us hope everybody moves to. But that's going to give incentive for green, but also retrench relationships within the energy sector of who you buy your energy from and who you don't buy your energy from. And it could be that Russia may get squeezed out of the market in Europe and have an excess that China will then pick up. So again, now we're looking at, China and Russia may also evolve out a whole energy network that they're on their own grid, and China and Russia and their satellites, they all trade oil and petroleum because they all like each other, and the West does something else entirely different. I know it's speculative, but that's how the world works. It's all not black and white. Russia took over Ukraine and that's that. No, there will be ripples in this pond that are going to change everything specifically. I keep coming back, specifically depending upon what China decides to do. But I have 10 other bullet points here, but let me fire through. I think I've hit most of them. But let me fire through some more of the comments. First time chatter from Brown Miller Group already yelled out. Brown Miller Group, do you think the dollar will still be the global currency? I just addressed that, Brown Miller, before I even saw your question. I truly believe the U.S. dollar is up for question in the next 5 to 10 years as the global exchange currency. First time chatter from Urban Traveler. Good name. What is going to be the price of a liter from the giant vodka factories outside St. Petersburg? I don't see times on this. It doesn't show me times.
It doesn't.
Brown Miller Group, so 1 year from now, what will Ukraine look like, and will anybody care? That's also a very good question, Brown Miller Group. I've outlined 3 alternatives earlier. I think people will care, especially the Ukrainians themselves. Ashley says, is war inevitable then because NATO-affiliated countries are almost certainly going to be involved? Not necessarily. NATO countries will only be involved if Russia decides to go for the gold and retake all of Europe, which involves some NATO countries. NATO seems to be strengthening, but again, the next U.S. election could change the whole equation. I'm not going to mince words. If Donald Trump gets elected, NATO is done. And you may see Russia roll over Eastern Europe and reestablish the Soviet Union. It's not a threat. Again, it's not me fear-mongering, don't vote for Trump. I'm saying, no, I'm just looking at how it works. And he has shown a great affinity for Trump and a great disdain for NATO. And NATO would be the one thing that holds Vladimir Putin's ambitions of reestablishing the Soviet Union back to its former glory. NATO's the only thing standing in its way. So it's interesting that the U.S. election somehow is involved in the fate of Eastern Europe. Only Here for the Podcast says, is the scenario where China joins with Russia essentially one where they take Taiwan, or are these independent questions? I think they're independent questions. I believe China was always going to retake Taiwan, and China is slowly retaking Taiwan on the international stage, but China's been doing it diplomatically, strategically, slowly. China does not want an open war. China does not want to do what Russia just did in Ukraine. They don't. They don't like conflict. They don't like shaking things up. They don't like to rock the boat so much that it causes chaos. They despise chaos. They like order. And so they have been trying slowly, patiently to take back Taiwan in an orderly fashion. And they're on a track to do that. They're not, I do not think, strategically wanting to veer from their path, which is going to ultimately be successful, by suddenly launching a war and throwing the world and the world economy into even more disruption. So they're independent questions. Taiwan is going to be taken back over by China. That will not have anything to do of whether China decides to side up with Russia and create a whole new global order, a dual global order. DDSHD asks, what about India? Who will they back? Yeah, that's another great question. I will speculate that India will, another global ramification of all this is that India might be influenced to join Team West. They're a democracy. They are an increasingly capitalist state. They ascribe to human rights and human values, and they have a lot in common with Team West. They've just never wanted to fully join Team West because they consider themselves an independent power, much the way Russia does. But this might tip the scales into more entrenched cooperation with India and Team West because, again, if China and Russia form up a second global order, they will exclude India. And there's no reservations about that. China and India ain't great buddies, and they're not gonna be. So it's in India's interest, perhaps, to go ahead and vote for keeping the established world order by becoming more entrenched with Team West. But again, speculation. Brown Miller's group said, we are the parents of a former student. You are the best. You are the best, Brown Miller group. First time chatter from WX Bone. How did, if any, our pullout of Afghanistan and the lack of additional support playing to Russia's gain confidence to pull this off? That is a very astute observation, Waxbone. I had not thought of that. Certainly, and that's a very specific point. The Russians have been, Vladimir Putin's Russia has definitely been looking at the retraction of the United States as a global leader for 10 to 20 years. Okay? I'll give it 10 years. I mean, even during the George Bush era, the first, 5 to 8 years of this century, George Bush was invading Iraq and still exerting U.S. power outwards for various reasons I won't get into here, but you've heard of them. So the United States for, 20 years ago was still projecting power outward. The last 10 years, there's no doubt about it, the United States has been retracting power internationally. And again, accelerated when Donald Trump came into office 5 years ago. Retraction. Don't want to be involved in foreign wars. Don't want to be bogged down internationally. America first. We're just going to do stuff here. You do have to kind of look at that and say, yes, Russia was paying attention to that. Would Russia have invaded Ukraine when George Bush was in office? I dare say not. Dick Cheney actually was in Ukraine multiple times trying to get them to join NATO. And Russia was too weak at that point to challenge the United States. And the United States was too strong and was out in the world and was projecting power outward. And that exact equation has flip-flopped. So as America's pulled back, that is exactly when Vladimir Putin has decided now's the time to push out to regain some of the territories we lost. It is not a coincidence. Very, very astute, Waxbone. Again, what has Afghanistan got to do with that? It's not Ukraine. It's not. But it's a retraction of American power. And it's an obvious show to the Russians that America was not wanting to get involved internationally. And if you're wanting to do something like take over another state, you don't want your major competitor to be in the neighborhood or even be in a flexing muscle mood. You want to wait till they're not in a mood to get in a fight. That's when you go pick a fight with somebody. So likely related. Ruby's Cuber says, where are we dropping boys? I'm thinking Kiev. Well, we ain't dropping no boys anywhere. Biden has said on multiple occasions the U.S. will not have boots on the ground. By the way, U.S. President Biden has said it like 1 million times. We're not putting U.S. troops there. The U.S. troops will not be there. The U.S. is not going to have a physical presence in Ukraine. Why does he keep saying it? Why do you think he kept saying it over and over and over again? Let me tell you why. Because he didn't want the Russians to use that as an excuse of why they invaded. He didn't want the Russians to be able to say, oh, the U.S. is moving troops. Oh, the U.S. is moving weapons. Therefore, we have to do. He was trying to negate giving them any reason to invade by saying, Look, Russian people, the U.S. has got no boots on the ground here, and we have no intentions on having boots on the ground. So your leader can't say that he's coming to push back the United States. We're telling you we're not there. That's why I kept repeating it. Obviously, it didn't really work, but Mr. Manolo has given me a couple links. I will check them out as soon as I can. Brown Miller Group says neither Russia or China have currencies stable/flexible enough to replace the dollar. At the time, right now, maybe Brown Miller Group, but the way you make your currency flexible and stable is by making it a world standard, at least for half the world. If you just look at China's economy alone, China can pull it off. Russia could never. The ruble will never be the ground base unit for anything. In fact, it's collapsing right now. But China's economy is so gigantic, and so many other countries that do a tremendous amount of trade with China. The yuan is so powerful now, it could stand on its own. And given the weight that Russia would throw behind it, and perhaps several other Asian countries, allies of China, it could probably stand the test of time if they go that route. Vikram Tiwari says, why was it so easy for Russia to invade Ukraine? Doesn't Ukraine have some sort of military to defend itself? Yes. Vikram, let me ask you this. And I'm trying to think of ways to phrase this without offending any other country, but you know Mexico has an army, right? Actually, I think some Americans don't know that. Mexico has a decent army and a navy. And an air force. Mexico has been fighting like drug gangs and stuff. They have a significant army. Can they go toe-to-toe with the United States? I mean, the analogy is apt. Ukraine certainly has an army, but they're up against a country and a military, again, an exponent bigger, if not an exponent and a half bigger. It's simply a matter of scale. So, yes, the Ukrainians have a decent army and an air force, but you might have heard, as of 6 a.m. this morning, the Russian bombardment had already destroyed 60 or 70% of their air force and their airfields. It's just, it's a David versus Goliath scenario. First-time chatter from DeGeorgiev. DeGeorgiev. What happened to the flash quizzes for last week? I tried to email you, but I didn't get a response. I'm sorry, DeGeorgiev. Okay, yeah, email me again, DeGeorgiev, and tell me your screen name and tell me that you hit me up here. Ashley says the Cold War may not stay so cold this time. I think it might. It's more important to understand that the Cold War is back on. The U.S. versus Russia, it's back on. Or let's just say Team West versus Russia, it's back on. Vladimir Putin felt it is time. He can withstand it. He's going to do what he can to show the world that the Russians are a power unto themselves and they don't need anybody and they're going to do what they want and they demand respect. We'll see how far it gets them, but I believe it will be a Cold War standoff that might get even chillier than the first one, simply because ever since the Soviet Union went away in 1991, the economies of the Russia and its former states is integrated in the world economy. That's what makes this so much more complicated. Is the Cold War, when it started up in, say, 1950, it was two separate systems that had nothing in common. Communism, capitalism. There was no singular global financial system that everybody was tied into. The United Nations was brand new. No one particularly cared. They were two separate entities already. But what happened was when the Soviet Union collapsed and went away, then everything, all the states of the Soviet Union became part of the system. So what's unique about this scenario of the new Cold War is now Russia has to backpedal and unthread its way out of a system that it became a part of. Again, that's a great comment because that's why I'm so passionate about raging about this for 2 hours. It's like, this is different. The Cold War is definitely back on, but it's so much more complicated because we're all tied to each other now. And how do you untie things? And my answer is they're going to untie things by building two separate systems. Again, just a little insight, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one. Hollandsworth says, what will become of the Ukrainian government? It will be replaced by a pro-Russian government. Likely in the form of some hilarious joke-ass elections that the Russians will hold. As soon as they liberate Ukraine, they'll hold elections like next month. And again, 99.9999% of the people who vote will vote for pro-Russian people. It's the same playbook they've done everywhere. The Russians are super smart people, but politically in international relations, they're pretty one-dimensional. They just stick with the plan and go with it. Just do it again and again and again and again and again. So this is the Cold War playbook of how they ended up with all the Soviet puppet states in Eastern Europe. Let's have some elections. Sure, why not? Ashley says that's exactly what Putin wanted us to think, that we didn't need NATO anymore. Their timing was completely strategic. Certain cyber warfare has also played a large part. Absolutely, Ashley, you're dead on. Writes Harold says, due to Trump's relationship with Russia, he had controversies during presidents. However, do you think anything would have changed if Trump was president again? Yes. I think if Trump becomes president again, things are exceptionally streamlined. The Republican Party in the United States, and again, I'm not political, don't care. Don't attack me for being anti-Republican. I don't care. I just see things. I just read stuff. We see what's happening. It's not a secret. The Republican Party has projected itself into the levers of power, both in the courts systems, in election systems all across the nation, that they're setting it up to if and when a Trump-like person, if not Trump himself, runs again, they control enough of the system from the inside now that they can't lose. And therefore they can streamline everything and perhaps even change the Constitution if they want. I'm hoping I'm wrong. Here's hoping I'm wrong. But that seems to be what's been going on behind the scenes in the United States. So a second Trump presidency would be very different from the first. Mostly because in the first Trump presidency, everybody, including Trump himself, was still kind of playing by the old rules, much the way Vladimir Putin has been. For the first 20 years of his reign, he was playing by the old rules. Yesterday, Vladimir Putin said, I'm not playing by anybody's rules but my own anymore. And I'm suggesting if Trump were to retake office in 3 years, he would say, well, I'm not playing by those old rules anymore. The old rules of democracy in America are gone, and here's what we're going to do because we have the levers of power to do it. So it will be a very different America if that comes to pass. I'm not suggesting that it's going to. I think it'll be a close call if he runs for office, which he seems to be indicating he's going to. Our country is very divided and very evenly divided, so it's anybody's call. First time chatter from Morgan Williams 555555 says, please. I don't even know what you're pleasing, but all right. R cover C says, I don't want to go to war until I'm at least 26 so I can get drafted. So I can't get drafted. Good call. Well, there's always Canada, R cover C. Sky Daddy says, yee. Casey Leanne says, what if we email you? Yeah, just email me. Yeah, I see how far back I am now. Okay.
Like you're in over an hour and a half back.
But it doesn't look like I've got that much more to pan down. Okay, I'll just shout out first time chatters then. Master Mason, first time chatter. Oh, make a Google form. Angry turkey worshiper says, let's do it. Oh, okay. Yes, VT Krieger says, can I get 5 points retroactively to my World Regions class in 09 and go from B to an A? Boom! VT Krieger, I have the power to make that happen. I will retroactively fix that grade. Ashley would be fine with any points. Callisto Malfoy took it in 09 too. First time chatter from TF Red Spy says, hello Red Spy. Hannah Mercury says, I'm here participating. First time chatter. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Well, I'll just shout out the first time chatter. EMS 1523, thanks for joining. Participated. Yeah. Okay. I know, but I want to see first time chatter for Cyber Streams and Scott Blair 24 and Arnie I Hang. Mr. Manolo says, after the show of power, couldn't Putin just decide to keep free part of Ukraine and just stop there? Because would NATO have the force and willingness to stop him from wavering the cost if it would have? I think I suggested that in option 3 of only taking over part of Ukraine. I'll go down to, let's see, first time chatter from SR2631 and Sangjin 1999. Awesome. And let's see, Senate, Ashley, Angry Turkey. You think Russia will be heavily involved in the next election again? Yes, Russia has the best cyber army on planet Earth, and I'm sure the United States and others are working hard to catch up. And my friends, Uncle Sam wants you to join its cyber hacking army too. First time chatter, red monkey butt. And cloudy skies. Buckshot says, H. Muan says, how do you think Ukraine is holding up so far? Not great. It's about over. I would say today is the final day. In fact, the sun's coming up in Ukraine right now. Military operations are probably heavily underway, probably bombing. Most of the major cities have emptied out. So everybody's trying to get the hell out of Dodge, and panic is probably soon to ensue, along with death and destruction, depending on how hardcore Putin wants to bomb it. Buckshot says, my guess not great, but then again, Finland surprised the world in its defense against Russia a long time ago. So who knows? That's true. Finland did defeat Russia in a land war, but that was a long time ago before conventional weaponry. It's 5 a.m. I said, sun's coming up. Muan says, what are Putin's intentions looking to be? Is it still east of the Dnieper scenario, or is it looking like he's going to go all the way? Again, Muhan, I talked about 3 different scenarios earlier. That might have been an hour ago, depending on when you asked that chat, so maybe I already covered that. I'm Bill says, will the cadets protect us? Absolutely, the cadets will protect you. Russia will not penetrate the drill field. We will repel the Ruskies at the drill field. X-Soulsborn says, aren't they jailing peaceful Russian protesters? Yes, and all of them. Anyone that goes on the streets have already been forewarned. If you walk onto the streets of Russia with a peace sign, you will go to jail, and about 1,000 people have so far. Alias JS says, if the Sino-Russia and Team West division you suggested tonight occurs in 2 different world systems, do you believe Team West's opinion of not recognizing Taiwan will change? No. You have to remember, Taiwan is tricky because they are a democracy. We do like them. We do support them. We've sold them weapons for 40 years so that they can defend themselves. But to recognize Taiwan and or suggest we were going to protect them and or physically protect them in case of a Chinese invasion would be to start World War III. And again, no side seems willing to want to have the annihilation of the human race to protect Taiwan nor Ukraine at the current juncture. That's just the way that it is. First time chatter from WRS 6012. What is the incentive for high-profile U.S. politicians to accept Russia's aggressions? There is an increasing component of the American conservative Republican Party. I say conservative loosely anymore because I don't really know how to define the American Republican Party anymore. And that's not offense to my Republican friends. Conservatism is one thing. The current political party that supports Trump is not really conservative. I don't know what to call them. They don't believe in the kind of Constitution and the way things have always been. Conservative means keep things the old way, maintain traditions, law and order, respect authority, respect the police, respect the institutions of government. They're religious, conservative. That's what conservatism is. The Trump division in the Republican Party does not do those things, or does not seem to care about those things as much as something new. I don't know what that something new is. I don't know how to define that, if that makes any sense. And so what's happening in the U.S. that has never happened in my lifetime, by the way, is that for the first time ever, you have this Trump division of formerly conservative Republicans who were the pro-police, pro-military, anti-Russian, okay, pro-strong U.S. presence on planet Earth, push back the commies. You have to remember, all of the U.S. presidents since World War II have been anti-commie, anti-Russian. It has been beaten into the American people that Russians are the bad guys, mostly by Republicans. And so we're in this very weird scenario that you have the Trump division of Republicans who now say, we like the Russians. What's the problem? What's the problem? Putin's a strong leader, like Trump is a strong leader, and they should just do whatever the hell they want. That is very different. That has never happened in modern America, that you have a political party that is supporting an openly supporting an anti-democratic autocrat that used to be America's enemy for 80 years. It's again, that might piss people off. I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it. The one guy that's the firebrand for this is the Tucker Carlson guy, who's the most watched show on Fox, the Fox channel, who openly has said, I don't give a shit about Ukraine. Putin never did anything to me. He's an okay guy. And Donald Trump himself came out this week and said, that was brilliant what Putin did. That's hilarious. He's awesome. And you're like, oh. Again, no judgment. Just never seen it before in America. It's never happened that the anti-communist, hate Russia political party is now fractured and half that party loves Russia and Putin. It's kind of hard to understand. Most of us are kind of shaking our heads, not really sure what to make of that. Anyway, the question was, what's the incentive for high-profile U.S. politicians to accept Russia's aggressions? Some of them like it now. Some of them so hate the Democrats or so hate Joe Biden or so hate whatever or so love Trump that anything that pisses off the Democrats or Biden, they like, including a foreign power that's taking over other democracies. Again, it's hard to understand, and that might offend Trump fans or Republicans. I don't know. I would love to talk with some pro-Trump people, older people, by the way, not younger. And I say older because I really want to talk to people like, so you guys are Ronald Reagan Democrats. Ronald Reagan called the Russians the evil empire. Ronald Reagan is the one who, in the Cold War, built up a huge nuclear arsenal to ensure that they could kill the Soviets because the United States hated Russia so much. The Republicans hated Russia so much. And so I really want to talk to an old Republican and be like, and so what happened, guys? I just want to know what changed. What changed in the last 30 years? Because it's a pretty big departure from the way that the Republican Party has viewed Russia forever. Okay, first time chatter from MQK 1999. Is there any reason for Russia not to invade Moldova or Georgia immediately after Ukraine? I talked about that earlier. It would be to go back on the very premise of why they're invading Ukraine. In other words, they would be to call themselves liars. They said they were going into Ukraine to protect Russians. Well, there's no Russians in Moldova, so that would make their further advances look completely fake and false. They may not care, but it would go back on their own story, their own mythology. Vikram says 137 civilians got killed in Ukraine in less than 24 hours. It's going to be thousands within a week, unless it's really one-sided, Vikram, and the Russian military just roll over so quickly in the coming hours that it actually minimizes casualties, which is probably what Putin wants to do. First-time chatter from I'm David Day. And by the time they invade Moldova, Georgia, NATO is most certainly going to get involved. Again, neither Moldova nor Georgia are NATO members, so I would not predict that NATO will get involved. If NATO doesn't get involved over Ukraine, a huge-ass country that wants to be part of NATO, then they're probably not going to do anything to defend very small countries like Moldova or even Georgia, which also wanted to be part of NATO. Ashley says this is all propaganda, lies, and bullshit. Yeah, pretty much. Mac User says depends on where you're from. In China, the word propaganda is used much more lightly. That's true, like an advertisement. Agreed. You're right, Mac User. So I think I almost look at propaganda more like advertising anymore. It's like trying to influence people by telling you the story or pitching a product, whereas saying there's a genocide occurring in eastern Ukraine, they're killing all the Russians, that is just a lie. That's not propaganda. There's no proof that anything's happening there. Let's see. I'm David Day says, I had this theory. It's alleged, not confirmed, but Putin may have pancreatic spinal cancer. Do you think if that's true, could it be one of the major reasons for his push being so urgent? Yeah, that's getting to be a little too National Enquirer. Speculative, weird stories, aliens spotted outside of Moscow. I don't have any opinion about that, so I don't know. Amelia says he's mad now. I hope you're not talking about me. Ashley says nuclear proliferation means imminent nuclear war in my eyes. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow, but someday. Unfortunately, Ashley, I might share that view. Let's see. From DeGeorgiev, it's been reported that Putin is a combo of cancer and Parkinson's. Maybe. And I see David Day is reporting on bombs going off in Kiev. It's breaking news. Angry Turkey worshiper Taiwan announced sanctions against Russia. Do you think the West Taiwan, China, LOL will, I see, West Taiwan, China, LOL, will follow suit of Russia and finally absorb Taiwan? I've talked about that a few times. I think it's imminent, but I don't believe they'll do it by force. First time chatter from Petera 070 I heard Germany was very hesitant for Nord Stream and was one of the countries that didn't want swift sanctions. You are correct, Peter O. Peter O is dead to rights. They did not want to turn off the Nord Stream pipeline, which is going to be a major supplier of gas to Germany, nor do they want the swift sanctions to kick Russia out of the international finance system. And here's why. Germany gets a hell ton of its energy from Russia and sells a hell ton of products to Russia. So Germany is very hesitant to isolate and condemn and destroy Russia economically because that will put them in a position of pain. Do try to keep this in mind. We're in America. Most of us are. Hopefully there's some people from around the world. Most of us are here in America. We don't do a lot of business with Russia. So it's very easy for United States politicians and the president to say, we should be tough on Russia. Nobody should do anything. We should isolate them and destroy them because it doesn't hurt us that much. By the way, it'll hurt a little. Oil prices are going through the roof, but it doesn't hurt us that much. You do have to take into consideration countries like Germany and all of Europe that does do a lot of business with Russia and will be impacted in much bigger ways than the United States will. Just food for thought. That's why they're hesitant. I'm David Day says, well, China's interests are not for war right now. They don't want to get back. They want to get back to commerce with Ukraine and Russia. Didn't see this coming. Agreed. Yeah, China is not really a fan of Russia doing this, but neither is it a fan of condemning them because it doesn't. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So China, it doesn't mind when Russia pisses off the United States and Team West because it benefits them. But at the same time, they're like, yeah, but we're not particularly condoning what they did. We're not happy about what they did, but it pisses off all the people we don't like, so we're okay with it. Al 1024 says, in that agreement, the U.S. told Ukraine they'd support them if Russia ever came for them. Kind of a dick move on our part to just sit there. Well, yeah, I don't know about that agreement. I never saw the details of that agreement that swore we would or that it was even outlined that we would, so you have to send me that one in email. Vikram says, will China take over Tibet as well before or after Taiwan? Vikram, they already own Tibet. That's already happened. That's old news, my friend. Tibet is part of China, and it's occupied fully by China. And even on the global maps, it's part of China. But there's a boots-on-the-ground presence of the Chinese government, and they are changing the demographics of the state of Tibet so that it is going to very soon be more ethnically Chinese than it is ethnically Tibetan. First time chatter from that Greek boy. What do you think America will send troops to Ukraine? Nope. Won't happen. Never. U.S. president has said it multiple times. Not happening. FYCJ, Kiev is being bombed. Is anybody else looking? I can't look at the stuff because I'm looking at the chat room right now. Peter O says, what do you think will happen with European energy dependence on Russia? I talked about this earlier as well. I heard countries like Lithuania get their oil from Australia because they won't want to depend on Russia like most other European countries. I agree in your principle, Peter O, but Australia doesn't have any oil, so Lithuania ain't getting any oil from them. They might get coal from Australia. Australia's got a lot of coal. But yes, as I talked about earlier, I believe this situation is going to completely realign / change / completely erase and reform energy dependencies and relationships on planet Earth. I think that's happening no matter what. Everything else I said may not come to pass, but I believe the energy one will. I believe more and more countries see what's going on and they're like, we don't want to be in this situation. We do not want to be in a situation of being beholden to Russia because now they're too unreliable. DeGeorgiev says, is that why Germany's remain neutral? Because they want gas and oil? Yes. The Grand Poobah says, do you think Eastern European countries may send troops or volunteers? Or do you think they will stick to material aid standing on the sidelines? Yes, to the latter, Grand Poobah. No one is sending troops. The fight in Ukraine will be over way too quickly, and it might be over already as we speak. Barbecue time. It's always barbecue time. Any indications China will move on Taiwan? Now, nope. Talked about that several times. Not going to happen. China will pace themselves. There's no reason for them to go into active conflict with Taiwan. They will eventually acquire it slowly, politically, strategically, as they've been working on. First time chatter from our REBs. Finally, more pressure to push renewable energy. If only it didn't come at the same time Chernobyl became a battleground. Right, REBs? Right? Wow, isn't that a bizarre twist of fate? They're fighting over a nuclear site that almost killed half the planet. Yeah, let's get on that alternative energies, like faster than we're doing. Scythe Mode says, Biden just announced sanctions on Russia, mainly cutting off its largest banks and imports of American military technology. That was actually earlier today. Ashley, splitting the UN into two seems to be counterintuitive to its purpose. Agreed. It's likely China will support Russia economically, though. So would Russia really be that damaged? Probably not. But again, I keep saying, watch China. If you want to see how this story ends, watch China's moves with Russia. If they get in bed with Russia, it's an entirely new world. If they keep them at arm's length and maintain the current system, only China can decide whether the current system will remain in place. Only China can decide. With all due respects, when does this end? Says Rubik's Cuber. Oh, you mean this podcast? You don't have to keep watching this Rubik's Cuber. It's all good. I mean, as I'm panning down, it's getting bigger. So I guess people are still chatting. You're on the current side of the chat, because I keep panning down. I thought it was near the end, but then it just keeps getting bigger. Okay, well, that's what we're here for. We're here for the chat. Waxbone says, could the Go Green movement be the reason this is happening now? Perhaps their leverage was coming to an end. I'd like to think that, but if Putin thought that people were going to be less reliant on oil, why would he start a war that would encourage people to not buy oil from him? So I'm not sure about your logic on that one, Waxbone, but who knows with Putin. Mexican Goose is late to the party again. Al 1024, greenest energy is nuke energy. Russia has plenty of land to build those. True, but they have tons of oil and coal and natural gas. Ashley says, wonder if Boy could just do a stream answering all these questions after compiling them all. There's so many. That is true. Okay, am I getting close then? All right. He's an importer-exporter from George Costanza. I know that quote, Lloyd Christmas, good one. Let's see. Ashley went back and forth with Plaid Katie. Good, I can skip over that. Blaze Lynn says, I got here late because of an exam, but where do you think our next steps would be in terms of a draft or a nuclear war? I've been thinking about it all day. I wouldn't worry about either, Blaze. I think you're good. I don't think you're going to get drafted, and I'm certain you're not going to get drafted because the U.S. is not sending troops anywhere. And a nuclear war, well, there's nothing to worry about because there's nothing we can do about that at all. I don't worry about things of which I have zero control over. I can voice my opinion against them, but I don't worry about them. So, and not to make you worry more, perhaps, but we would likely not survive the first phase of a nuclear war because many of you younger students probably don't know this, but there's this little thing called the Radford Arsenal that's only about 10 miles away from us as the crow flies, if that, maybe more like 5. The Radford Arsenal is one of the biggest producers of nitroglycerin in the United States, which is a major component of many weapons. And therefore, the Radford Arsenal is extremely likely to be a first strike destination of a global thermonuclear war. So, sorry I'm laughing about it, but I'm old. I can laugh at these things. We would be extremely likely in a first strike zone scenario were any of that to happen, and you won't even know about it until you're already in the deep sleep. I know that's no good way to end a podcast, so I should probably add a few more questions in here. By the way, anybody, including Blaze, who's late to the party, email me that you were in this chat room and you made a comment in the chat box and tell me your screen name so I can verify it, because there might be a couple of points headed your way. And like a few points. I ain't talking about 1,000,000 points, just a few points, maybe 5 points. Okay. Hollandsworth says, do you think it's possible we could have a non-nuclear boots on the ground, a ground war between nuclear powers? No, there's no point to it. There's no point to it, and the nuclear powers wouldn't bother. I mean, the nuclear powers have ground forces in case they get into a fight with a country that doesn't have nuclear weapons. They don't need to use nuclear weapons against a country that doesn't have them. And you only put boots on the ground if you either want to defend your country, in which case, if you're defending your country against a country with nuclear weapons, you're going to die anyway. If you're defending your country against a country that doesn't have nuclear weapons, then you can fight and likely win. And if you're trying to take over another country with boots on the ground, you don't want to nuke it, because what would be the point of taking it over on the ground? So that's my opinion about that. Lackluster Lives says, do these get saved to the Plaid Avenger Twitch feed? I've never used Twitch before. Please don't judge. No. Did you already answer that, Katie? Oh, you did. I don't know anything. Lackluster. So replying to Blaze, neither of those are on the table, I promise. Why would even keep a separate Ukraine government? It's called a puppet government, Ashley, if they keep one. And it'll just be, Belarus is actually currently, I consider Belarus a puppet government of Russia now. An achievement they just pulled off in the last 2 years. Putin doesn't need to invade and take over Belarus. He already controls them outright from the top down. Why take it over? Just make them do what you want. First time chatter from Spectrophone. Good one. Spectrophone. Good screen name. I feel like how in the 2000s there was a significant push to bring Ukraine into NATO. The fact that it never actually happened, and then later Russia making the red line ultimatum, that was a long time coming for Putin. Agreed, Spectrophone. You're 100% on point. I mentioned this earlier. I like to mention again, U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney, at the time, U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney visited Ukraine multiple times and visited Georgia too, on a concerted effort to get them to join NATO. And it just didn't pan out at the time. Of course, I'm actually, somebody should go Google Dick Cheney and see if he's saying anything about this, because he's probably saying, I told you so. I told you so. We should have got Ukraine in back in 2004. First time chatter from Red Horse 4911. None of what is happening would take place if Trump was president. That's what Trump has said. Because Trump would have disbanded NATO and we wouldn't be talking about anything. Alb 1024, alias says, LOL. Yes, I got it. First time chat from Random Loser. War, good God, Joe, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Say it again in the chat room. Absolutely nothing. Mexican Goose, are you streaming on the marrow? On the marrow. Oh, I'm streaming on the marrow. You mean like bone marrow, Mexican Goose? I'm not donating any marrow right now tonight. If I were to donate a bone marrow, I would do it on Twitch. Okay. Am I getting close to the end now? Ari B says, if anyone else has had the live cams up during the stream, the Ukrainian Interior Ministry confirms the explosion in the sky a little bit ago was shooting down a Russian aircraft. Ooh. Life of Toad says, Boyer! One note to add on the cyber piece, the U.S. Cyber Command was promoted in 2018 as a standalone functional combatant command, so this is the tasking arm of the cyber army, even though it's all of the branches plus agencies. Thank you for that info, Life of Toad. I see Ari B's comment. The Grand Poobah says war is actually going better for Ukraine than the media is reporting. The Ukrainian army is holding in the Donbass region and mostly in the north. The only trouble spot right now is the breakout from Crimea to outflank the Donbass from the southwest. You guys are getting all technical and stuff. This is good. Red Horse says, fair enough, but if American oil was flowing, Putin wouldn't have an edge. Our gas prices are going to skyrocket. They already are, Red Horse, definitely. Especially in states like California, as Red Horse points out. Definitely happening. By the way, Red Horse, I had a friend of mine who has the same political viewpoint as you, and he's like, we import Russian oil, and all this stuff's going to go through the roof now, and they may even cut off imports to us. And I'm like, what's wrong with that? That's good. That creates more fracking jobs in the U.S. Buy American. We can frack more in the U.S. The U.S. has a ton of strategic oil. So, yeah, everything balances itself, Red Horse. If the Russians turn off the oil, it doesn't hurt us because we have a lot of oil. It hurts Europeans. They don't have a lot of oil. Vikram says, so basically, if China decides to take over Taiwan or Tibet tomorrow, the U.S. will probably be sitting out in this case. Yes, absolutely. The U.S. nor any other country is going to do anything to China for anything it does to Taiwan or Tibet. Sorry, you heard it here first. Spectrophone agrees with me. Pretty much, yeah, Vikram is what he says. Let's see. A Red Horse says, most watched show on TV, not just Fox, and you are paraphrasing. Yes, I was paraphrasing Red Horse. I can't remember exactly what he said. But I did not know it was the most watched show on TV. When I read it in passing, I didn't watch it. I read about what he said in multiple news stories. And what I read from the news stories were he is the biggest show on the Fox network. I just simply did not see anywhere that it's the biggest show in America. I don't know that, but if you say it's true, I don't have any reason to doubt you. I don't watch TV, so I have no real clue. Let's see. Airbees has got a YouTube channel link they put up there. Cool. Thank you for that, Airbees. Hollandsworth, also such a saint. Thank you. Red Horse says Republicans hated communism, not Russia. Oh, Red Horse. That's an interesting take. Really? Huh. I like that, Red Horse. That could be how it's being spun in conservative circles right now. I had not thought about that. So they hated communism, not the Russians per se. I maybe you're older than me, Red Horse, but I'm old enough to remember that I don't think that was the case. I mean, I know Republicans from the good old days, and Ronald Reagan specifically called them the evil empire. And he didn't really mince words too much between Russians and communism because Russians were the force of communism. So I have to respectfully disagree with you, Red Horse. Old school Republicans hated the Ruskies. In fact, there was an old phrase that no one knows about, apparently, that's less than 50 years old, that was coined by conservatives, anti-communists back in the day. It was better dead than red. Red for communism. Better dead than red. I always thought that was hilarious. Let's see. Vikram says Russian propaganda TV channels broadcasting Tucker Carlson Tuesday's gig in Russian, which he's openly defending Putin. Yes, I did see that. They were definitely making hay. The Russian news agencies definitely making hay, showing a divided America because of the stuff that Tucker and former President Trump are saying. Let's see. I feel the reason, this is from Blaze, the reason we're more content with the fact we got closer to Russia with the Trump presidency is because we know what happened in the past, and this is something new where we aren't in the line of fire. Capable of, they're no longer a communist-run government as well. Yes, they are not a communist-run government anymore. That is 100% true. Does that change that they may be the aggressor in this scenario? Does it change that they are flouting the international norms and laws? Does it change the fact that what I'm suggesting is that they are giving up on the international order established since World War II? Again, it's not a judgment call on my behalf. I'm just saying, are they doing these things? Does it matter if they're communist or not? If the things they are doing are making big impacts on the world and perhaps not in positive ways? That's all I'm suggesting. So any fans or of Tucker Carlson or Trump or whoever or Vladimir Putin, again, I'm here to try to get people to think critically about what's going on and the greater repercussions of this, not to pick sides and fight for my side. So just so you know, I do try to be an arbiter, a fair negotiator, a simple elucidator of facts and opinions that are elicited or given to you so that you think critically about things in other ways, not just this particular little thing happening in Ukraine. That's why I was compelled to talk for 2.5 hours again after I've done it like 3 times this week. Okay. It seems like there's a lot of chat going on between Red Horse and some other folks about pipelines. And it looks like it turned into a political conversation, so I'm not really trying to get involved in that. And if I missed any questions, Katie, I keep panning, but I can never seem to get to the bottom. Except first-time chatter from Psycho Nutter, who wants me to buy followers. Oh, I want to buy followers. Thank you, Psycho Nutter.
Did you see the
Okay, I'll pan down. First-time chatter from Synthesizer. I like that one. Whoever has energy and access to natural resources will be key. Agreed.
Yeah, it's the one in purple. Keep going.
Okay. Let's see. I see it now. From Synthesizer says, thank you, Professor Boyer. Your class was one of my favorites back in 2010. Thank you. George Jiv says, do you think any of Russia's other allies could/would support Putin? Allies like Serbia, Kazakhstan, or other countries like them? Well, it's hard to say. It's interesting that you bring up Kazakhstan in that list because Kazakhstan may be the next place invaded by Russia, maybe more covertly. Russia already has troops in Kazakhstan. Just from the last 6 months, Russia sent in troops to help quell an uprising in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan also has a ton of ethnically Russian people in it. So I've actually been worried about Kazakhstan for some time. And will Kazakhstan voice support for Russia? Maybe, perhaps because they don't want to get invaded by Russia. And maybe perhaps because the leader is already pro-Russian, or if he's not, he soon will be because they'll replace him. So Kazakhstan is in a pretty tricky situation and may already be a semi-satellite state of Russia. Other allies, I can't really... Again, I already pointed out, I think Iran and North Korea will likely voice support for Russia, even though Iran has been strangely quiet about all of this. The other ones, maybe even Venezuela, maybe Cuba, although I doubt Cuba would come out in support of this. But kind of some of the old Cold War alliances may step up if they see it as in their favor to reestablish relations with Russia, maybe to get cheap oil. But I don't see many. I can't see many now, but only time will tell. First time chatter from Patrick Show. One of the tornadoes in that crazy storm a few months ago went right by the arsenal, I think. Yeah, I did hear that. And Vikram is shouting out the synthesizer. Awesome. Ashley is also talking about the right for arsenal. Sorry if I made that was too much of a hot button issue. Ashley says, I feel like a puppet government would seem like a waste of time, though. He's already invading and bombing them. No use holding up pretenses. Au contraire, Ashley. Puppet governments are way better for Vladimir Putin because it makes it appear that if I had to choose between invading 20 countries and taking them over or having 20 puppet governments, I take the 20 puppet governments because those 20 countries have seats at the United Nations. Those 20 countries seem independent. Those 20 countries can be my allies. Those 20 countries voice 20 voices of support for anything I do. If I just take them over, then I look like an imperial power who's just absorbed stuff, and I'm on my own. So puppet governments do serve a purpose politically that is quite important. It's the reason why Soviet Union had a bunch of puppet governments in Eastern Europe versus just taking them over. Okay, am I missing any other major questions now? SpongeBob has more ratings than Tucker. Okay. And thank you, Red Horse, for chiming in. Thank you all for the chat you guys had with each other. That's what we're here for. Angry Turker Worshipper says Russian forces about 20 miles from Kiev. Spoondog 4, Reagan and earlier era Republicans definitely had a special hatred for USSR beyond communism. I do agree. I did express that to Red Horse. Nixon opening relations with communist China. Yeah, Nixon actually caught a bunch of shit from Republicans for even visiting communist China. So there was a overall hatred of communism because, remember, ideologically at the time, it was feared that communism ideologically was going to take over planet Earth. But it did stem from Russia. So they were kind of ground zero for it, which is why there was a specific hatred of Russia. Hatred is such a strong word. Animosity towards Russia for all that time, which carries over to the modern era in old school Republicans. Let's see. Cat Minecrafter took your class last year, still watching the streams. Thank you, Cat Minecrafter. I thought I recognized that screen name. Let's see. Ashley says, I'm interested in a question you missed above from someone else. Do you think Putin will start pushing into the Arctic? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry I missed that. He already has. Vladimir Putin's Russia has already claimed half of the Arctic Ocean. In fact, where's my comic book at? This comic book is now like 20 years old. I know we wrote this in 04, 05. This is a comic, the very first Plaid Adventure comic book we ever did was all about Russia claiming part of the Arctic and putting a flag, you're not going to believe it, putting a flag on the sea floor of the Arctic. We had a graphic in here. Trying to find that graphic. Oh, this comic book is so offensive. It's so awesome. We had, here's an awesome, here is a submarine crashing up while the Plaid Avenger was visiting with some Eskimos. So offensive. This is awesome. And I'm trying to find out if we had, here, this is from 14 years ago. I depicted Vladimir Putin in the comic book showing up to take over the Arctic Sea. Damn, was I ahead of my time or what? Crazy. I could have swore I had a little thing about the... Oh, there it is. I forgot. We even portrayed the Russian submarine that took down a Russian flag and planted it on the bottom of the seabed at the actual true North Pole. That's some real shit right there. That actually happened. And that was 14 years ago. So Ashley and whoever else asked the questions, absolutely, you better believe it. Vladimir Putin has already claimed the entire half of the Arctic Ocean, which sits over top of Russia. It is strategically important because as global warming decreases the ice pack, the permanent ice sheet on the North Pole, it means it opens up shipping, it opens up travel lanes, it opens up rivers emptying into all the Russian rivers. Most of them flow north into the Arctic Sea. Russia is getting ready to be a remade country even before Vladimir Putin did anything. So just naturally, Russia is poised for strategic growth. Quite frankly, it actually surprises me that Russia wants to get in fights with the world right now, because if they just sit on their hands for another couple of decades, they're going to be way richer than they already are because of the access that the Arctic Ocean is going to allow them for international trade and also access to tons of mineral resources and oil that's up in that area. Sorry, that's a whole nother lecture. Okay, did I miss anything now? Okay. Life at Toad says Pakistan Prime Minister flew to Moscow on Wednesday, said he was excited to be there during such an interesting time. I followed that story, Life of Toad. I am intrigued by that. I'm actually not sure why Imran Khan, the president of Pakistan or Prime Minister of Pakistan, would have made such a comment. They're not like besties with Russia, not yet, but it sure seems like they're on their way. So maybe that was answering an earlier question. Maybe Pakistan is going to reform its relationship because it likes what Russia's doing. Who knows? That might be another reason that affects India to perhaps grow closer to Team West. But again, that's a stretch. I really don't know which way Pakistan and India are going to go. But I did see that story of Imran Khan meeting with Putin while the bombing was launching in Ukraine. It's very odd. Thanks, Red Horse. Thanks for all your comments. And okay, what am I missing? Katie's got to go to bed, so I got to get out of here. Ashley says, great to have a comic book. Thank you. We're going to start what do you call it?
When do you want to stream next week, Preston?
Oh, I don't care. Till you guys tell me when to stream next.
Saturday, Sunday?
Sure.
Catch up on the...
Sunday.
I don't know. Tomorrow seems very busy.
Yeah, we have to work at the bar tomorrow. And maybe Saturday. But yeah, how about Sunday? We'll do something on Sunday. I will post it up by tomorrow. We'll post it, schedule it here, and I think you get a notification when things are scheduled, right? Oh, you don't? Yeah, just come back to this Twitch channel, and it'll tell you when we've scheduled the next one. We'll shoot for Sunday. Oh my God, I have to do shout out Gandalf Lotion 69 says, ding, 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 Russia's giant LNG terminals on the Yamal Peninsula. Well-placed geographic reference and knowledge, Gandalf. I like that. Or Gandalf. I'm just going to go with Gandalf Lotion. I was pronouncing it wrong. Gandalf knows about his Russian geography and resources. Let's see. Cat Minecrafter says, tomorrow. All right. So we'll go for Sunday. Life of Toad, the last one I'll say. Fun fact, the Arctic is named for Arctis, which is Greek for bear, and Antarctica, Greek for no bears. Save that one for your next wine party. I will do that, Life of Toad. And Spoondog 4 says, why didn't Plaid Adventure take out Putin when he had the chance? The Plaid Avenger is no assassin, Spoondog. All right, well, thank you all so much for almost an hour 3. Woo! How did I do another 3 hours here on Twitch? This was my favorite one so far. Quite frankly, I didn't even get to half my talking points, and I didn't really have a whole lot of graphics. Hopefully it was okay, just me talking instead of showing you great maps and stuff. But appreciate you guys here. Love this forum. Love the interaction. We'll do it again on Sunday, and we'll try to get on a more regular. We usually do it on Monday, so we're definitely doing it on Monday, but maybe we'll try to sneak one in on Sunday. So definitely Monday, maybe on Sunday. And I do Wine Wednesdays on Wednesday nights for my wine class. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll set up I meant to say this earlier, the merch page. We're going to set up a merch page where you can buy the old comic book. Oh, and you got to have this too, right?
I think said they missed the memes this time.
Yeah, they missed the memes, but oh, look at this. The plaid pint glass. I uncovered a bunch of these in a warehouse. So those are going on the merch page soon. We'll get it all figured out. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here again on Monday. Same plaid time, same plaid channel here on Twitch. And as always, party on.